Chapter 11:16. Who was the letter addressed to? This question seemed normal, but in the current situation, it was quite crucial. If he said that he would take it to Astro Sovereign, it would solve a mystery in everyone's mind. The former Exalted Water luminary, one of the three sovereigns, the Astro Sovereign, was still in the world beyond worlds. However, for some unknown reason, he had been living in seclusion and was even more low-key than the concealed sovereign. If the letter was given to someone else, the previous mystery would probably continue to remain, and it might even become more confusing. They didn't say anything. I think they need you to agree, and go there before they tell you. The messenger, Gao Shuebo, replied. Yen Zhaoge looked thoughtful. Since this disciple of the Astro Sovereign, who lived in seclusion in the roving jade heavens, didn't care about the affairs of the world, who would tell her the news of his visit to the roving jade heavens? People in the roving jade heavens must be concerned about Astro Sovereign's whereabouts and recent situation. After all, he was a sovereign who was as famous as the earthly sovereign, the concealed sovereign, and the profound sovereign of the roving jade heavens. Gao Shuebwa and the others were probably curious as well. Still, they still left the choice to Yen Zhaoge. To Yen Zhaoge, just as Gao Shuebwa had said, this could be a fortuitous encounter, yet it could also be a problem. More importantly, they had too little information at hand, which was not conducive to making a judgment. I wonder where that emperor is now. After pondering for a moment, Yen Zhaoge still accepted this errand. Gao Shuebwa answered, the place she lives in seclusion is called Chaoheng Valley. I'll let Qing take you there later. Qing and she get along well. A moment later, a woman appeared. It was none other than Gao Qing, whom Yen Zhaoge had met once before, and whom he had not seen for a long time. She was indeed worthy of being a stunning genius who was on par with Fu Ting. During these past years, she had already attained the 5th level of the martial saint realm, the mid-seeing divinity stage. Also, looking at her, Yen Zhaoge could see that she was just a half step away from the 6th level of the martial saint realm, as she might be able to cross over at any time. Senior apprentice uncle Yen. Gao Qing looked at Yen Zhaoge, her expression filled with curiosity. Yen Zhaoge nodded, smiling. It's been over a decade since we last met. You've improved tremendously. Senior apprentice uncle Yen, are you praising yourself? Gao Qing giggled. Back then, our cultivation bases were virtually the same. Now that you have ascended the immortal bridge, you are much faster than me. Yen Zhaoge's face did not turn red, his heart not leaping. Let's work hard together. Qing, Gao Shuebwa turned his gaze towards Gao Qing. Gao Qing shrunk her neck and instantly became listless. Her grandfather's personality had always been strict and strict. Seeing that she seemed to be much more relaxed in front of Yen Zhaoge today, she also became a little more casual. In the end, she was immediately suppressed. Looking at her, Yen Zhaoge could not help but smile. After bidding farewell to Gao Shuebwa and the others, they immediately set off. After following Gao Qing for a long time, Yen Zhaoge discovered something. It looks like this Dynasty Vessel Valley is not at Green Duckweed Mountain. That's right. The Chaoheng Valley that Granny Li lives in is in the Heavenly Vault Mountain of the Serene Province. Gao Qing answered matter-of-factly. The Yu region mentioned here was completely different from the Yu region that Yen Zhaoge had known in the 8 Extremities world that year. Having already been in the roving jade heavens for some time, Yen Zhaoge had long since come to know that the division of land here was similar to that of the world beyond worlds, as it was also roughly divided into 9 regions. Still, unlike the world beyond worlds, which was named after the 9 heavens, the roving jade heavens used the name of the ancient Chinese 9 regions. These 9 regions were different from other places where the word region or continent was present in the name of a place. Any one of the 9 regions of the roving jade heavens was vast and boundless, as it was virtually comparable to the southeastern Yang heaven territory or the southern blazing heaven territory of the world beyond worlds. Each region was divided into many different regions of varying sizes. Any one of them could be even larger than the entire world of a lower world. At the very center of the 9 regions was the U region, where green duckweed mountain was located. Like the central June heaven territory of the world beyond worlds, the U region was the most central region of the roving jade heavens, as it was the most abundant in spiritual chi and abundant in natural resources. Green Duckweed Mountain was even more important, as it was the best blessed land of the roving jade heavens. The direct lineage and peak experts of the prime clear lineage all resided here, as its status was equivalent to that of Kunlun Mountain in the world beyond worlds. It seemed like that disciple of the Astro Sovereign was really keeping a low profile in seclusion here, as she did not even stay at Green Duckweed Mountain, not even establishing a cave manor in the U region, as she directly went to the U region. Granny Li, hearing Gao Qing's reply, the corners of Yan Zhaoga's mouth twitched slightly. This is a female expert? When he had been conversing with Gao Shuebua and the others earlier, Yan Zhaoga had not been able to tell the difference between he and she. Hearing how Gao Qing had addressed this person now, Yan Zhaoga knew that this person was a female just like Jia Mingkong. The problem, however, was that the Astro Sovereign was a man. While it was not that male masters were forbidden from taking female disciples, under most circumstances where they were not related by blood, such things were still rather rare. The Astro Sovereign and the female emperor could be considered a pair of master and disciple who were rather famous and had extremely high accomplishments in post-Great Calamity times. Now, not only did the Astro Sovereign have another disciple, this disciple just had to be a female as well. While it was not impossible, Yan Zhaoga instinctively felt that something was off, as if the flames of gossip within his heart were being stoked, causing his thoughts to wander off to the side. Am I too bored? Yan Zhaoga stroked his lower chin. As he was pondering, he suddenly heard Gao Qing ask, "Little apprentice uncle, I heard from other disciples that not only did you defeat exquisite Tang Peak's purple light caves when Beifeng, you even inscribed words on the backs of those of Ashen Spirit Valley without them even noticing it." Sword Sweeping the North Wind was Wen Daihong's title, referring to him being like a fierce wind that pierced through the skies, tough and unstoppable. Still, there were some who privately claimed that this title was a mockery of Wen Daihong's stubborn personality, as well as his lack of empathy. Of course, due to Wen Daihong's personal strength and the liberal emperor of exquisite Tang Peak's purple light cave behind him, not many dared to openly mention this. What I can do, fellow Taoist, one cannot. Therefore, he admitted defeat. Yan Zhaoga said casually, "Still, this fellow Taoist, when strength is indeed extraordinary. While he is impetuous, he is also open and above board. I wonder if there have been any other outstanding figures in the roving jade heavens besides him in recent centuries, right? Senior apprentice Uncle Long and senior apprentice brother Long definitely don't need to be mentioned. I already know about them." Hearing his words, Gao Qing answered without hesitation, "There are, little aunt, as well as 9 heavens he, who is equally famous as her. Isn't there a saying in the world beyond worlds, Kunlun's God-shocking dragon, Yuthan lightning 8 sex, our roving jade heavens also has 9 heavens soaring solitary crane. Splendor fills the divine lands." Gao Qing then said rather regretfully, "Still, little apprentice uncle, you might not be able to see a single one of them this time. I heard that 9 heavens he is currently in secluded cultivation, while little aunt left the roving jade heavens a year ago to go adventuring. If you call her little aunt, then..." Yan Zhaoga felt rather curious. Gao Qing's originally cheerful mood dimmed somewhat. She's second grandaunt's daughter. Of course I call her little aunt. Sadly, second grandaunt has already passed away. Chapter 11:17. Looking at the rather downcast Gao Qing, Yan Zhaoge could not help but sigh. Gao Qing's second grandaunt was the second daughter of the profound sovereign Gao Qingxian and the Dragon Spring Emperor Long Xingquan. Gao Xuebe was second sister, and Long Xueji's second elder sister. As compared to Gao Xuebe, who was often in secluded cultivation, and Long Xueji, who was renowned outside, this second grandaunt of Gao Qing's was much more low-key. Yan Zhaoge had virtually never heard of her in the world beyond worlds. On the one hand, she was low-key in the first place. On the other hand, she was already dead. There was even less news about her. Nine heavens soaring solitary crane. Splendor fills the divine lands. Yan Zhaoge wanted to change the topic, as he asked, the legendary twin prides of the roving jade heavens in recent years. Gao Qing calmed her emotions, calming her thoughts, as she nodded. Right. Have you heard of them too, little apprentice uncle? Yan Zhaoge said. There are some rumors about the roving jade heavens in the world beyond worlds as well. Still, most of them are very brief. The two of them are the most outstanding figures to emerge from our roving jade heavens after little granduncle. Gao Qing nodded, and then she explained. Amongst these words, the second half of the phrase, beauties fill the entire divine continent, refers to little aunt, whereas the first half, the solitary crane of the nine heavens, refers to the disciple of Ashen Spirit Valley's Cloud Emperor, He-Mian, whose sword shakes the nine heavens. He's honored as the exalt of the Holy Court, and some call him the exalt of the eight heavens. Yan Zhaoge burst out laughing. 8 heavens exalt? What's with that? He's not the 9 heavens exalt. Why don't you be a bit more arrogant and call yourself the 9th firmament sovereign? Now, you don't dare call yourself the 9th firmament sovereign. Isn't that a joke? The 9 heavens referred to the sky. The 9 heavens exalt was virtually equivalent to being known as the heavenly exalt. This title was really heavy. The legendary primordial suppressing immortal who ruled alongside the world claimed that he only worshipped the heavens and earth, not the 3 purities. While he said that he only worshipped the heavens and earth, he actually only worshipped the heavenly Tao. The addition of the earth signified harmony between the heavens and the earth. The difference between the heavens and the earth could be seen from this. The number 1 martial saint of the world beyond worlds, Chun Qianhua, who was able to face a true immortal head-on as a human, had been known as the heavenly young master in the past. Now, he was known as the upper exalt, not the heavenly exalt. While this was due to the tradition of the world beyond worlds 10 exalts, it was also because the title of heavenly exalt was too heavy. It was not something that humans could bear. Of course, this was what others called him. Chun Qianhua himself did not care about it. According to tradition, the titles of Broad Creed Mountain's past chief of the 8 extremities world all contained the word heaven in them. In that kind of lower realm, it wasn't a big deal. Even if people knew about it, they wouldn't take it too seriously. Most of them would just laugh it off. Still, things were different in the world beyond worlds. Moreover, the higher one's cultivation base was, the more one had to pay attention to this taboo. With Chun Qianhua's personality, he wasn't too interested in such things. Still, if it was anyone else who was the world beyond worlds upper exalt and encountered other martial saints using the title of heavenly exalt, they would probably take the initiative to measure the other party's worth. The title was too honorable, and not everyone could bear it. It was just like how a person who had yet to ascend to the celestial realm called himself an emperor. That wasn't just a matter of being laughed at. If a true immortal expert with a bad temper or who was more serious found out about it, they might very well come knocking on his door. Also, beating you up would be pointless. If a true emperor were to slay you, no one would pity you as they would only think that you deserved it. In pre-Great Calamity times, similar things had happened before. Those who claimed the title of emperor had had their entire clans directly exterminated by a true immortal. It wasn't Nine Heavens he himself who suggested it. Instead, there was indeed someone who addressed him as the Nine Heavens Exalt when he attained the 10th level of the Martial Saint realm, the human Exalt stage. Gao Qing smiled as well. While it was a shortcut to directly change it to his original title of sword-shaking Nine Heavens, it was still doubted by many. Everything else aside, little granduncle was still in the human realm back then. Gao Qing said, while it was someone else's title, Senior, he himself did not reject it. Therefore, little granduncle went to look for him. TSK, Tisk. Yen Zhaoga stroked his lower chin. 9 heavens transforming into 8 heavens. This is how it came about, right? That's right, little granduncle won the duel in the sword. Gao Qing first nodded before shaking her head. Still, this title of 8 heavens exalt is not entirely a joke. While Long Xueji had won that battle, it had only been by a slight margin. Long Xueji had praised He Mian greatly afterwards, as he had once said that it had been the most difficult battle he had had with a martial saint in recent years. While the 9 heavens had transformed into 8 heavens, He Mian could still be considered to have suffered a glorious defeat. Considering that He Mian was younger than Long Xueji and had only just entered the human exalt stage at the time, his strength could be considered shocking. Ha! Yen Zhaoga laughed lightly. There are crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the roving jade heavens as well. This He Mian seemed to be an arrogant person as well. Not feeling ashamed of having retained the title of 8 heavens exalt, he definitely had the intention of challenging Long Xueji again, changing his title from 8 heavens to 9 heavens after his victory. His resolution and confidence could be seen at a glance from this. That's right. After little granduncle pushed open the door to immortality, the sacred court exalt of the roving jade heavens would probably be one of the most powerful martial saints. Gao Qing said straightforwardly, Little Aunt's talent is comparable to his. Still, because of her age, she is still a 9th level martial saint. She would naturally not be able to defeat an exalt of the sacred court. Little Aunt aside, even grandfather would not have sufficient confidence in facing off against an exalt of the sacred court. Gao Qing had spoken to her heart's content for a time. Only afterwards did she realize that it was inappropriate as she unconsciously shrunk her neck, as if her grandfather, Gao Xuebua, was right beside her. She looked at Yen Zhaoga in an ingratiating manner. Little apprentice uncle, could you pretend that you didn't hear my last sentence just now? That is hard to say. Sometimes my memory is very bad, but sometimes it is very good, Yen Zhaoga intentionally teased. Gao Qing's face instantly turned bitter as she regretted her words. The two chatted and laughed as they headed north, traversing countless mountains and rivers as they headed in the direction of the Yu region. Just as they were about to leave the borders of the Yu region, Yen Zhaoga glanced back in the direction of Green Duckweed Mountain, seemingly unintentionally, after leaving Green Duckweed Mountain. That sharp aura that shook one's soul had faded greatly as it no longer gave one the feeling of being on the edge of a sword. After having left the Yu region, that sharp aura virtually could no longer be felt at all. Yen Zhaoga pondered as he retracted his attention, traveling together with Gao Qing as they headed to the Yu region's Heavenly Contour Mountains Dynasty Vessel Valley. They did not encounter any trouble along the way, or when Daihong blocking their path to challenge them. While it was only Gao Qing who had led the way, Long Xueji and Gao Xuebua had definitely not been slacking off. After a rather long time, their destination finally appeared before Yen Zhaoga's eyes. While the northern lands were icy cold, there was currently no wind or snow. As the sunlight shone down, the snowy water was insufficient to freeze. Still, an ice-sealed gorge appeared before their eyes. the entire gorge frozen within a glacier. As Yen Zhaoge and Gao Qing approached, before they could even be notified, a crevice soundlessly split open within that glacier, resembling an open door as it welcomed the two within. Chapter 11:18. Looking at the glacier, feeling the spiritual qi fluctuations within, Yen Zhaoge seemed to realize something. It really is of the same origin as the female emperor Jiemingkong, just that there are some differences in the details. Little apprentice uncle, let's go in. Gao Qing looked at him. Yen Zhaoge nodded. All right. The two entered the icy valley together. After traversing through the layers of cold ice, a wave of warmth assaulted their faces. Sunlight actually seeped through the valley, which had appeared dark due to being sealed off by the ice. As Yen Zhaoge walked in, the scene that appeared before him was actually one of spring, the grass growing long and birds flying in the air. The sunlight here was not natural sunlight. Instead, it was condensed from the light of the sun by someone being equivalent to man-made. The owner of this place probably has a different personality from the female emperor. This thought quickly flashed through Yen Zhaoge's mind. The world of ice outside the valley was for the sake of concealment. It was warm as spring within the valley, which was the ideal living environment for the owner of this place. As the two entered the depths of the valley, they did not see any attendants or servants within. Granny Li resides here alone, having no disciples as she only has a strange beast, the Feifei, by her side, Gao Qing said, not finding it strange at all. Yen Zhaoge nodded in understanding. At the center of the valley, a small courtyard could be seen amidst the flowers and grass. Outside the courtyard, Gao Qing raised her voice. We're here, Granny Li. Laughter resounded from within the courtyard. If you already knew, come in yourself. You're already familiar with this place. Yes, Granny. Gao Qing smilingly pushed open the door, turning to look at Yen Zhaoge. Come, little apprentice uncle. I'm very familiar with Granny's place. Yen Zhaoge shrugged, entering alongside Gao Qing. As the door was pushed open, a faint white qi surged. Coming into contact with that white qi, Yen Zhaoge felt a bone-piercing chill, which he could feel even with his current cultivation base. Yet, this white qi did not affect the warm environment of the surrounding valley in the slightest, as it was clearly visible. With Gao Qing's cultivation base, while she had long since broken through space to see true divinity, she would probably be frozen stiff in an instant if she were to directly walk amidst the white icy fog. Still, a red jade pendant hung around her neck, which emitted a ring of red light that kept the icy fog at bay, protecting her from being harmed by the extreme cold. Granny Li gave it to me, Gao Qing said as she walked. This way, little apprentice uncle. In front of him was a vast icy mist, and he couldn't even see his own fingers. Even if a martial saint entered, he would not be able to see anything clearly. It was set up by the master of this place, forming a protective restriction. It was formed from his own immortal energy, as well as formation mysteries merged within. With Yen Zhaoge's eyesight, just having entered the icy fog, he could already feel that time seemed to have come to a standstill. He had cultivated the immortal trapping sword and the aeon-light heavenly tome, so he had a deep understanding of the profound mysteries of time. If it were anyone else, they would probably be unconscious. Time stopped as if they were sleeping peacefully, just like how Yen Zhaoge had wielded the thunder of eternal night to deal with others in the past. If one lost consciousness, even if they didn't freeze to death, they would remain in the ice fog forever. At that time, as time passed, he would eventually run out of energy and really become a lifeless ice sculpture. However, the person who set up this protective restriction deliberately left a chance of survival. She had clearly imparted to Gao Qing the method to find this chance of survival and to pass this trial. Gao Qing was indeed familiar with this place, as she led Yen Zhaoge through the restrictions. Only after the icy fog before them had vanished did the two truly enter this small courtyard. Just having entered, an ear-piercing shriek resounded by their ears. "I don't want to. Let go of me, Lily. I don't." Before she had finished speaking, she was interrupted as an indistinct voice resounded. Gazing over, Yen Zhaoge saw a woman grabbing a strange beast that resembled a small fox with both hands, pressing it head first into a basin of water. The small beast struggled unceasingly. "Lily, I'm telling you, I won't be a gentleman if I don't take revenge. Woo." The voice that had spoken was shockingly that small beast that resembled a fox, its tone sharp like that of a child. This small beast resembled a fox in appearance, its entire body snowy white, and its limbs thick and short. It was precisely the legendary Fei-Fei. These beasts were few in number and could be used to alleviate one's worries, not being fond of fighting. Still, Yen Zhaoge could tell with a single glance that while this Fei-Fei was small in size, the dense demonic qi concealed within its body was much more powerful than most demonic beasts he had seen before. If this strange beast were to go berserk outside, human exalts aside, there would probably be few who would be able to withstand it. Yet this Fei-Fei was currently being pressed into a basin of water like a small cat, being rubbed unceasingly as it was being forced to take a bath. The woman who was pressing it down had the appearance of a young girl who looked no more than 16 years of age, similar in age to the similarly young Gao Qing. "Behave yourself. How long has it been since you last took a bath? It's fine if you don't like to be clean normally, but you have to meet guests now." The woman rubbed that Fei-Fei while looking up at the entrance of the courtyard, smiling. "Qing, you're here? Go in and find a place to sit. I'll be right back after I've finished bathing Ping Ping." Gao Qing called joyfully. Granny Li, looking at that Fei-Fei again, she was all smiles as she said, "Ping Ping, you're running away to be washed again. Little Gao Qing, don't just stand there and watch. Come save me quickly, woo." That Fei-Fei struggled to speak before it was drenched in water once more. Seeing this scene, Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. "Oh, that mischievous fatty at home. Have I been too indulgent and pampering him?" Looking at him, the woman smiled. "You are Boss Yu's junior apprentice nephew?" Hearing this form of address, Yen Zhaoge was momentarily taken aback before realizing that she was referring to the sword sovereign Yu Jinbei. Yen Zhaoge pays his respects to senior. Even as Yen Zhaoge answered, thoughts flashed within his mind. It seemed like the sword sovereign Yu Jinbei knew that the female emperor had not been the only disciple of the astro sovereign in the past. Still, he seemed to have kept his mouth shut about this, as he had not even told Wang Pu, Nie Jingshan, and Bai Tao about it. "I wonder how I should address senior." Yen Zhaoge considered his words for a moment. Yen Zhaoge would definitely not follow suit if Gao Qing addressed the other party as Granny Li. "I am Chu Lily. My master was a close friend of your ancestor. Still, to be honest, I was born too late, having never seen your ancestor's flare. Instead, I am rather familiar with Boss Yu." The woman smiled. "If it is from Boss Yu, you can call me Aunt. Otherwise, I don't mind if we talk about our own relationship." While her tone was casual, Yen Zhaoge could vaguely feel the majestic power within her body. While she might seem a little unreliable, not having the demeanor of an emperor at all, still, she was a genuine true immortal like the brocade emperor, the encompassing emperor, and Long Xueji. Since the other party did not have an emperor title or an exalted title, Yen Zhaoge cupped his hands. "Senior Chu seems to want this Yen to bring a letter back to the world beyond worlds. I wonder who it is for." Chapter 11:19. "That's right. If it's convenient for you, help me send a letter back." As Chu Lily said this, she first cleaned the Fei-Fei in her hands. The beast that resembled a little white fox did not appreciate her kindness at all, as it shook off the water droplets on its body rather discontentedly. "Let me tell you, Lily, don't even think about sleeping in for the next few days. I'll definitely wake you up early." "You dare." Chu Lily flicked the head of the Fei-Fei. instantly causing the little beast that could kill an immortal bridge marshal saint with a single slap to sprawl on the ground. The little beast clutched its head with its paws. Humph! Just wait and see. While it was very dangerous to make fun of an emperor, Yen Zhaoge could not help but smile as he looked at the two of them. Please help me send this letter to Kunlun Mountain's restful immortal valley in the world beyond worlds. Chu Lily did not mind, just that a jade coin had appeared in her hand. The message she wanted to send was sealed within this jade coin. It was just that the destination caused Yen Zhaoge's heart to jump. It was not for the female emperor of Jade Sky Peak's Cold Wave locale, or the sword sovereign of Northern High Peak's Jade Capital Crag. This letter was actually for the concealed sovereign of Restful Immortal Valley. If she knew that the sword sovereign was not in the world beyond worlds, it would be fine if she did not send the letter to Jade Capital Crag. However, she did not send it to the female emperor either. The concealed sovereign was indeed in the world beyond worlds now, but he was in seclusion most of the time. Was Chu Lily sending the letter to the concealed sovereign or asking him to send it to someone else? Was the Astro Sovereign still in the world beyond worlds? Many thoughts flashed through Yen Zhaoge's mind in an instant. Of course it's convenient, Yen Zhaoge first agreed. Since Gao Xuebua and the others of the roving Jade Heavens did not mind him sending the letter for Chu Lily, it meant that they were very certain that Chu Lily was not a spy. Yen Zhaoge sending the letter for Chu Lily would not be a taboo for the roving Jade Heavens. Still, before I left the world beyond worlds, I heard that the concealed sovereign is in seclusion again. He probably would not care about external affairs for a long time. Yen Zhaoge reminded. Not that this Yen is making excuses, but it really cannot be guaranteed that this letter will be delivered to the concealed sovereign in time. It may only be delivered a little later. Even after the Brocade Emperor had caused such a huge ruckus, the concealed sovereign had not appeared. From the looks of it, it was as if he was in death's seclusion. I see. Chu Lily looked disappointed. She pondered for a moment before saying, Since that is so, please help me deliver this to Jade Capital Crag. When Boss Yu returns to the world beyond worlds, you can just hand it over to him. If the concealed sovereign leaves seclusion before Boss Yu returns to the world beyond worlds, send him to the restful immortal valley then. Yen Zhaoge nodded, receiving the jade coin. He didn't seem to want to consider becoming a disciple of the Earth's sovereign of Qilin Cliff. Senior Chu, forgive me for asking, Yen Zhaoge probed. Is your master? Master, he... Chu Lily paused halfway through her sentence. Her mood became gloomy. He almost acted up again. She waved her hands towards Yen Zhaoge in utter boredom. When you go back and see Boss Yu, ask him. If he can tell you, he will tell you. All right. Yen Zhaoge shrugged. From Chu Lily's attitude and tone, he could already make some judgments. First, Astro Sovereign should still be alive and hadn't died yet. At least, when Chu Lily, who lived here in seclusion, mentioned Astro Sovereign, she didn't look sad at all. Whether her information was correct or not, it was hard to judge. Second, there was a reason why Chu Lily hid herself in the roving Jade Heavens and isolated herself from the world. Maybe it was related to Astro Sovereign, and the Sword Sovereign Yu Xinbei should know about it. With Chu Lily's personality, she obviously wouldn't like to live in seclusion like this. The current situation was a kind of pressure for her, but she endured it and restrained herself. Maybe she was willing to accept punishment because she had made some kind of mistake, or she was avoiding trouble and didn't want to make it worse. From this point of view, there might be hidden dangers in this matter. But relatively speaking, there were also opportunities hidden in the dangers. Actually, the only problem that he should pay attention to was female Emperor Jie Mingkong, who seemed to have nothing to do with this. Although it seemed to have nothing to do with this, it was the biggest problem. After all, female Emperor was also a disciple of Astro Sovereign and Chu Lily's senior apprentice sister. However, it was not good to ask Chu Lily herself about this. He could only ask Sword Sovereign or Concealed Sovereign when he returned to the world beyond worlds. Now, Yen Zhaoge could only hope that Chu Lily didn't mention Female Emperor, because she knew that Female Emperor didn't know the situation of Astro Sovereign. Otherwise, Yen Zhaoge would be in a lot more trouble after this matter. Yen Zhaoge had heard a rumor from Wang Pu. Jie Mingkong, the #1 emperor in the world beyond worlds, had opened her eyes. Yen Zhaoge agreed with this rumor because he had seen Female Emperor fight with his own eyes. Being knowledgeable, he knew the trick of it. Female Emperor didn't keep silent and sealed herself in ice. Actually, she was cultivating something similar to the silent meditation of Buddhism, which was called Dark, Profound Pass. In other words, although she could go out and had attended the opening ceremony of the Broad Creed Mountain, she was actually in a state of seclusion at that time. Even when she fought with Heaven Emperor, she still didn't come out. Only when she opened her eyes could she really come out. Before this, when she fought with others, it would actually be equivalent to her cultivating while fighting with others. While the atmosphere had been pretty good during the opening ceremony, only the heavens knew if anything unexpected would happen after the Female Emperor learnt of the letter he had delivered today. "Granny, my little apprentice uncle is helping you deliver the letter. Isn't there any benefit in it?" Gao Qing hugged Chu Lily's arm, asking smilingly. Yen Zhaoge gave her a big thumbs up in his heart. "Well done. Senior apprentice uncle, Gao really didn't send you over for nothing." Even if Chu Lily didn't give him a reward, Yen Zhaoge still intended to accept this task. Once the matter was completed and everything was done properly, there would naturally be potential benefits waiting for him. Still, if he could get some benefits now, Yen Zhaoge would definitely accept it. Chu Lily tapped Gao Qing's nose. "Am I the sort of person who orders others around for free?" With a light wave of her hand, a completely transparent crystal bottle appeared before Yen Zhaoge. "Still, I am indeed a poor person, not having anything that I can take out. Little friend, Yen, why don't you take a look and see if this thing catches your eye?" Yen Zhaoge received the crystal bottle, uncorking it and sniffing it lightly. "Oh, it's actually Devil Sealing Godly Water." Yen Zhaoge was rather taken aback. This was a good item for dealing with the evil devils of the 9 underworlds. If the cultivation bases of the 9 underworlds were high, treasures like the Devil-Shattering Arrow would be useless against them. While the Devil-Sealing Godly Water was unable to slay peak devils, it could seal and suppress many of them. Used at a critical moment, it would have the effect of reversing the situation. Chapter 11:20. The Martial Repository of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace of Pre-Great Calamity Times contained the method to refine the demon-sealing godly water. Sadly, Yen Zhaoge currently did not have the raw materials, and even the cleverest housewife cannot cook without rice. Therefore, he had not thought about this thing all along. Even if he didn't use it to deal with the demons of the netherworld, the demon-sealing godly water itself was an excellent material for forging tools. Just like the splendid Thousand Yarn, it could be used to forge immortal weapons. If it could only be used to deal with the demons of the netherworld, it would be somewhat useless. The effects weren't singular, and every effect could be said to be top-notch. The value of this item skyrocketed. What satisfied Yen Zhaoge the most was the fact that devil-sealing godly water was incomparably rare and precious. While the bottle before him did not seem like much, it could actually be considered to be an ocean's worth. "Thank you, Senior Chu." Yen Zhaoge did not stand on ceremony as he kept the small crystal bottle, cupping his hands towards Chu Lily. "It is just that this Yen is untalented and often roams about. If there is a reply, I might not be able to send it back in time. I would have to entrust it to someone else then. I wonder if Senior Chu would mind?" Chu Lily thought for a moment before replying, "If you can handle it yourself, that would naturally be for the best. If you can't, then let boss you and the others decide." "I will follow senior's instructions." Yan Zhaoge cupped his hands. The conversation that followed was much more relaxed. Most of it was a discussion about Dao techniques. Chu Lily had pushed open the immortal door. Her experience was needless to say. Still, as they conversed, she discovered to her surprise that Yan Zhaoge, who was still a martial saint, had many extraordinary insights that far surpassed that of ordinary martial saints. As the two of them chatted, they eventually started teasing Gao Qing, causing her to stomp her feet in anger. In the end, Chu Lily smiled and said, "I'm really happy today, but I've delayed you for a long time. Little Qing, accompany your martial uncle back. After all, it's his first time in roving Jade Heavens." Seeing this, Yan Zhaoge and Gao Qing immediately took their leave, Gao Qing even saying, "I will bring senior apprentice uncle back to Green Duckweed Mountain before coming back to chat with you, Granny. Go, go." Chu Lily waved at them. When the two of them left the courtyard, Chu Lily sighed and looked at the sky above, lost in thought. A desolate expression gradually appeared on her face. The fox-like Feifei jumped onto her shoulder and gently brushed her cheek with its furry tail. "Lily, don't be sad. His Majesty Astro Sovereign must be fine. After receiving your letter, he must have sent you a reply. Ping ping, I must go back to see Master." Chu Lily's empty eyes became focused again as she said word by word. Yan Zhaoge and Gao Qing left Dynasty Vessel Valley, immediately returning to Green Duckweed Mountain in the U region. On the way, he turned his head back to look at the Tianqua Mountain where Chaohang Valley was. "What is it, little apprentice uncle?" Seeing Yan Zhaoge's movements, Gao Qing asked curiously. Yan Zhaoge smiled, shaking his head. "It's fine, let's go." While Gao Qing was on rather good terms with Chu Lily, she clearly did not know what exactly had happened to Chu Lily, and why she had left the world beyond worlds to live in seclusion in the roving Jade Heavens. Even the top almighties of the roving Jade Heavens were quite curious about this. They must have been monitoring Chu Lily for a long time. Even now, they might not really let their guard down. Some had used Yan Zhaoge, who also hailed from the world beyond worlds, to probe her. Indeed, there had been some activity. Chu Lily virtually never left the roving Jade Heavens, as it would be very difficult for her to obtain important information. Therefore, there was no need to worry that she was merely passing on information. Still, the information contained within the jade coin that Yan Zhaoge possessed would probably be of interest even to Gao Xuebe and Long Xueji. "Right, little apprentice uncle." On the way, Gao Qing suddenly thought of something. "Do you still remember the first time we met?" Yan Zhaoge casually answered, "I do. It was in that world of 7 immortal pills." His heart jolted as he recalled what had happened that year. Back then, aside from him and Feng Yinsheng, there had also been the roving Jade Heavens disciples led by Gao Qing and the ingenious Flying Peak martial practitioners led by Fu Ting of the world beyond worlds. The 3 sects had congregated then, vying for the profound sky-purple gold furnace within the world of immortal pills. Whether it was the roving Jade Heavens Green Duckweed Mountains Minor White Peak or the world beyond worlds Kunlun Mountains ingenious Flying Peak's Red Lotus Cliff, late immortal bridge martial saints had participated then. For Yan Zhaoge, who had still been a merging avatar martial saint at the time, both sides had been massive entities that were hard to shake. It would not be easy for him to take advantage of the situation. He could only wait and see if both sides would be heavily injured, giving him a chance to reap the benefits. Who would have thought that a strange change would suddenly occur in the end? The illusory silhouette of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palaces, Pill Hall, actually resembled a living monster, as it devoured the 6 immortal bridge martial saints of ingenious Flying Peak and Minor White Peak from across numerous layers of space. the profound sky-purple gold furnace was drawn along as well, traversing through space as if wanting to return to the pill hall. Yen Zhaoga, Fu Ting, Gao Qing, and the others were drawn away along with it. Along the way, Yen Zhaoga had secretly activated the profound sky-purple gold furnace, shaking off the suction force of the pill hall and allowing them to escape with their lives. The profound sky-purple gold furnace had thus secretly fallen into Yen Zhaoga's hands. Afterwards, they had ended up in the blessed lands of Buddhism, landing in a Buddhist world known as the Obscured Way world. Still, the first 6 immortal bridge martial saints who had been drawn away had not been able to escape, as there had been no news of them thereafter. When Yen Zhaoga had met Fu Ting again earlier, he had even mentioned this matter. It was said that the Brocade Emperor and the experts of Ingenious Flying Peak had both attempted to search for them, yet had found nothing. I wonder how those fellow Taoists of your lineage, who were lost amid space back then, are now. He asked Gao Qing, "Is there any news?" Gao Qing answered, "There is no news of Senior Apprentice Grandaunt Tang and the others. Still, little granduncle discovered some clues amidst space earlier that seemed to point towards that legendary pill hall of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace." She was deeply worried. More than 10 years have already passed. Even if they can find the pill hall, Senior Apprentice Grandaunt Tang, and the others are probably, may the heavens bless them. Yen Zhaoga could not say anything more now. It was naturally a good thing that the roving Jade Heavens had obtained new clues. Still, Yen Zhaoga felt that it was better for him to wait and see. The pill hall of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace had successfully survived the great calamity and been completely preserved. Still, it seemed rather strange now. When the two returned to Minor White Peak, Long Xueji was nowhere to be seen. Only Gao Xuebua and Long Hanhua were present. Yen Zhaoga did not conceal their meeting as he gave a rough account of it, sending it to the Sword Sovereign or the Concealed Sovereign, yet not mentioning the female emperor. Gao Xuebua pondered for a while before saying, "If you are willing to accept this matter, just accept it. If it is difficult for you, this old man can find someone to do it for you. It will not cause any problems." He felt that this matter was probably more dangerous than fortuitous for Yen Zhaoga. If he offended the female emperor Jiemingkong, the losses would outweigh the gains. If his roving Jade Heavens sent someone to do it for him, he would not have to worry about this. "It is fine. Leave it to me, Senior Apprentice Uncle Gao." Yen Zhaoga smiled, though he was not joking at all. Seeing this, Gao Xuebua nodded before changing the topic. "News just came from the world beyond worlds. This morning, the Upper Exalt Chun, Qianhua, trampled on Ingenious Flying Peak's Red Lotus Cliff." Chapter 11:21. While the consequences of having their identities exposed would most likely not be good, whether it was the world beyond worlds or the roving Jade Heavens, both sides had sent people to infiltrate the other's territories in secret to gather information. It was extremely difficult to get first-hand access to secret and important information. However, the Upper Exalt Chen, Qianhua, had actually gone to attack the Dao arena of the Brocade Emperor's lineage. It would be very difficult for such a thing to remain undetected, although there were people who dealt with the matter in a low-key manner and prevented the news from spreading. There was no doubt that this was an earth-shattering event. On one side was the head of the 10 Exalts, the undisputed #1 expert of the world beyond worlds martial saint realm, one of the most outstanding geniuses of the past 2 to 300 years. On one side was a true immortal of the 5 emperors, one of the peak figures of the entire world beyond worlds. The collision of these two colossal beings naturally caused quite a commotion. Still, the Brocade Emperor himself was not in the cave manor. In the end, Qin Qianhua directly destroyed Ingenious Flying Peak's Red Lotus Cliff. Red Lotus Cliff was where the Brocade Emperor's Tao tradition was located. its defensive power was naturally not something that the minor no-hatred Dao arena could compare to. Still, the upper exalt Qin, Qianhua, was an expert who could contend head-on with the Brocade Emperor himself, without the Brocade Emperor personally presiding over it, while Red Lotus Cliff could block Qianhua for a time. Given enough time, he would be able to break through it in the end. Hearing the news, Yan Zhaoge was a little taken aback, but not especially shocked. He now had some understanding of that upper exalt's temperament. While he had been backstabbed by Yan Zhaoge in the 9 underworlds, being injured by the Brocade Emperor's immortal artifact, the 4 Grands' earlier heaven flag, in the end, he had still been injured. Still, Chen Qianhua would not be unable to forget the Brocade Emperor. Just because of this, thinking about taking revenge for him. There was only one reason why he went to destroy Ingenious Flying Peak's Red Lotus Cliff. Fu Ting, Chen Qianhua's target, was the Brocade Emperor's eldest daughter, the Grand Red Lotus Fu Ting. Of course, he didn't have any special feelings for Fu Ting, and he wasn't going to ask for her hand in marriage on behalf of his younger brother, Chen Kuanhua. To be precise, Chen Qianhua's goal was to kill Fu Ting. Whether or not a victor was determined in the battle between the Black and White Brocade Emperors, killing Fu Ting and Meng Wan would allow the strength of the black-clothed Brocade Emperor who walked the unfeeling path to increase. This was not a result that Yan Zhaoge was happy to see. Chen Qianhua was using the Brocade Emperor as a chess piece against Yan Zhaoge. I wonder if there were any casualties at Red Lotus Cliff? Yan Zhaoge asked. What was the final result? Long Hanhua answered. The exact situation is unclear, but there are indeed casualties. With the Brocade Emperor himself not present, did no one obstruct him? Yan Zhaoge rubbed his temples lightly. Long Hanhua was silent for a moment before he said, the encompassing emperor made a move, but failed within the Great Hall. Red Lotus Cliff was ultimately breached by the upper exalt. Oh, Yan Zhaoge was a little surprised this time. Generally speaking, when the strengths of A and B were about the same, A would attack C, and B would try to protect C. In this situation, A would have the initiative, and it would be easier for him to gain the upper hand. However, in today's matter, Red Lotus Cliff, as the third party, had focused on defending themselves. Their strength was not weak. Secondly, the strengths of the two sides were not equal. Indeed, in terms of cultivation base, the upper exalt Chen Qianhua possessed the ability to contend head-on against true immortals. He was the only martial saint in the current world beyond worlds who could do so, truly deserving of the title of the strongest martial saint. The problem, however, was that the encompassing emperor had an accompanying immortal artifact, just like the Brocade Emperor. While immortal realm experts might not be able to do anything to a human martial saint, it would not be nice for him to have actually used an immortal artifact. Still, since it was to protect Red Lotus Cliff, it was understandable that the encompassing emperor had gone all out. If the encompassing emperor had used an immortal artifact, yet Chen Qianhua had still succeeded in breaching Red Lotus Cliff, it would be rather shocking indeed. The encompassing emperor did not bring an immortal artifact with him. Yan Zhaoge asked. Having clashed with Chen Qianhua before, he knew that Chen Qianhua was indeed very powerful. Still, Yan Zhaoge did not believe that Chen Qianhua had been able to withstand the attack of a true immortal who wielded an immortal artifact barehanded while also breaching Red Lotus Cliff. The encompassing emperor finally used an immortal artifact. Long Hanhua said quietly. Yan Zhaoge frowned, a thought flashing through his mind. Could it be? You guessed right. Knowing what he was thinking, Long Hanhua answered. Upper Chen also wielded an immortal artifact. This is really... Yan Zhaoge put a hand on his forehead. Gao Shiwebua and Long Hanhua exchanged glances, shaking their heads as well. An immortal weapon was hard to come by. One reason was that it was difficult to forge, and the other reason was that the materials were scarce. Therefore, some of the great emperors who had truly pushed open the immortal door might not even have an immortal weapon. This had already been the case before the Great Calamity. Much less needed to be said about the era after the Great Calamity. Even perfected immortals lacked immortal weapons, let alone mortal martial saints. It was true that there were always exceptions to everything. For example, Gao Shiwebwa, who was standing before Yan Zhaoge, was a human exalt who wielded an immortal artifact of the leakless level. However, strictly speaking, this immortal weapon could not be considered as Gao Shiwebwa's personal possession. It was the sword of his mother, the profound sovereign Gao Qingxian, when she was still a leakless true immortal. Afterwards, it was passed down to her eldest son, Gao Shiwebwa, to wield. That was why Gao Shiwebwa could wield an immortal weapon as a martial saint. His younger brother, Long Xueji, had already opened the immortal door, but he did not even have an immortal weapon. Of course, this was related to Long Xueji's advocacy of forging his own swords. In any case, it was evident how rare it was for a martial saint to possess an immortal weapon. Chen Qianhua didn't have an elder who could pass down an immortal weapon to him. His own fortuitous encounter. Yan Zhaoge smacked his lips. The Origin Heavenly Scripture is indeed sharp in this aspect. The information obtained from the roving Jade Heavens was still too simple, as it was unclear exactly what was going on in the world beyond worlds. Still, with Chun Qianhua having stirred up so much trouble this time, Yan Zhaoge believed that things would not end so simply. Instead, Yan Zhaoge was rather uncertain about Fu Ting's current situation. Logically speaking, Red Lotus Cliff and Fu Ting should have made preparations in case the Brocade Emperor suddenly rose in revolt. In the end, it had been Chun Qianhua instead of the Brocade Emperor. If it had been anyone else, Fu Ting would have been able to escape this tribulation if she had not been at Red Lotus Cliff at the time. Still, it would have been much easier for Chun Qianhua to find Fu Ting's whereabouts since he possessed the Origin Heavenly Scripture. If Fu Ting had been at Red Lotus Cliff at the time, but not been killed by Chun Qianhua on the spot, instead being taken away by the encompassing emperor for protection, she would have been a little safer. Senior Apprentice Uncle Gao, I intend to return to the world beyond worlds. Yan Zhaoge pondered for a moment before bidding farewell to Gao Shiwebwa and the others. Whether it was his personal friendship with Fu Ting or the conflict between the Black and White Brocade Emperors, Yan Zhaoge would have to hurry back to the world beyond worlds. While he did not understand Yan Zhaoge's thoughts, Gao Shiwebwa did not question him, as he immediately nodded in agreement. Send my regards to your father. The roving Jade Heavens welcome you all. Thank you, Senior Apprentice Uncle Gao. After taking his leave of Gao Shiwebwa, Long Hanhua, and the others, Yan Zhaoge brought Meng Wan along as he returned to the world beyond worlds. Traveling from the roving Jade Heavens to the world beyond worlds required traversing numerous layers of space. When the two had finally returned to the world beyond worlds, after a long journey, before they had even stabilized their footing, they learnt of another piece of unexpected news. A new Southern Exalt had ascended to the throne. Chapter 1122. After learning that Chun Qianhua had broken through ingenious Flying Peak's Red Lotus Cliff, Yan Zhaoge immediately took his leave from the roving Jade Heavens and returned to the world beyond worlds. Still, traveling from the roving Jade Heavens to the world beyond worlds was not something that could be accomplished in a single step, as one would have to traverse numerous layers of space. The long journey would take up a lot of time. While Yan Zhaoge was hurrying on his way, it was naturally impossible for the others to just wait for him to return without doing anything. Many other things happened during this time. In the world beyond worlds, Chun Qianhua's attack on the Dao arena and cave manor of the Brocade Emperor's lineage had undoubtedly caused great waves. The influence of this matter might even shake the current structure of the world beyond world's 3 sovereigns, 5 emperors, and exalts of 10 territories. Under the control of some people, the news did not spread widely, but in the eyes of those who knew about it, it was no small matter. On the other hand, the upper exalt Chen Qianhua had sufficiently proven his strength as well. Against the pressure of the myriad emperor, he had actually still been able to breach the brocade emperor's dwelling. The encompassing emperor had used an immortal weapon, but Chen Qianhua actually had an immortal weapon to defend himself. The eye-catching battle record raised Chen Qianhua's reputation once again. In the world beyond worlds, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors had always been superior to the 10 exalts. The true immortal martial emperors who pushed open the immortal door were fundamentally different from the martial sages who remained in the mortal world. They were on 2 completely different levels of deterrence. But this time, Chen Qianhua had broken that barrier. As a human immortal, he was truly on the same level as a true immortal emperor. In the hearts of many in the know, he was an emperor in name but not in name. Of the world beyond world's 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, it might be more accurate to say that there were 3 sovereigns and 6 emperors. If one day he also pushed open the immortal door and achieved the leakless body, the realm of true immortals, what kind of strength would he have? Of course, even then, everyone believed that since Chen Qianhua had destroyed ingenious Flying Peak, the matter wouldn't end so easily. As the person concerned, the brocade emperor would definitely not let things go just like that. The encompassing emperor, who had lost face in the mediation, might not continue to pester the matter. After all, both sides had relied on their own abilities. However, the 3 sovereigns would not sit idly by. While the earthly sovereign and the sword sovereign were not in the world beyond worlds, and the concealed sovereign was in secluded cultivation, as soon as the 3 bigwigs were free, it was possible that they would get involved in this matter. Chen Qianhua himself did not care about any of this. The 3 sovereigns might ask about this matter, but he did not take it to heart. He did not take the praises and fear of the others to heart. He didn't feel worried, nor did he feel complacent. He was just a little annoyed because he hadn't achieved his goal. Fu Ting was not at Red Lotus Cliff. So that's how it is. There is a ritual that the brocade emperor designed for Red Lotus Fu here, which is closely related to her. It is no wonder that I misjudged it. It is the handiwork of a true immortal after all. Unable to find Fu Ting, Chen Qianhua left the Red Lotus Cliff. A faint trace of interest appeared on his lazy face. This ritual, it wants to try and eliminate the influence caused by the immeasurable heavenly Lord. Chen Qianhua seemed to be completely unaware that his previous actions had caused a mighty uproar, and he leisurely returned to his abode in Kunlun Mountain, Qianhua Peak. It was not caused by the brocade emperor's cultivation deviation this time. Instead, it was something that happened some years ago, he muttered to himself as he walked, his gaze distant as streams of light seemed to flash through it. Still, being willing to forsake this ritual and hide from Red Lotus Cliff, you are actually hiding from the brocade emperor? Chen Qianhua chuckled. The brocade emperor's cultivation deviation this time is interesting indeed. Returning to Qianhua Peak, he saw that the earthly young master Chen Kunhua was still waiting there. After learning about the details, Chen Kunhua could not help but feel dazed. This matter could be big or small, but it was not something that he could help to cover up. Chen Kunhua said nothing about Fu Ting's predicament. He understood this elder brother of his too well. When he did things, he would not care about the thoughts and feelings of others, even if that person was his own younger brother. Meanwhile, he had no ability to stop his elder brother. Still, it is still not as interesting as that Yin Zhaoga. Chen Qianhua lazily reclined in his armchair, a rare look of excitement appearing on his face. If I want to find that Red Lotus Fu, it will probably fall on Yen Zhaoga. This really could not be any better. I was just thinking of having some fun with that Yen Zhaoga in the first place. Chen Kunhua frowned. Yen Zhaoga? That's right. I have tried to find Red Lotus Fu's whereabouts, but the clues are indistinct and scattered. This means that someone is helping her conceal her karma and fate, Chen Qianhua said matter-of-factly. In the world beyond worlds, there are currently only those few who possess sufficient ability and might interfere in this matter. The concealed sovereign is in seclusion within the valley. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. North Guan is busy preventing the land of Tranquil Stream from entering the world beyond worlds through the spatial dimensional passageway in the northern snowy plains. Chen Qianhua smiled. Therefore, there is only one left now, the grand simplicity splendor cloud that Yen Zhaoga's father, Yen Di, possesses. So, Fu Ting secretly left Red Lotus Cliff and sought Yen Di's help, making use of the grand simplicity splendor cloud to conceal the search for her? Chen Kunhua asked. It was originally meant to guard against the Brocade Emperor. Instead, it has now become a hindrance to you, big brother? Chen Qianhua said nonchalantly. Yes, with the grand simplicity splendor cloud shrouding him, it would be inconvenient for me to find him. However, the problem was that there were only a few ways that Chen Qianhua couldn't find his target. In fact, it didn't affect his ability to lock onto his target. It would be much more troublesome if it was the Brocade Emperor instead. This had originally been to guard against the Brocade Emperor. Still, now that it was Chen Qianhua who was looking for him, its effectiveness was greatly reduced. Yen Di, where are you now? Chen Qianhua asked Chen Kunhua. Due to the existence of the grand simplicity splendor cloud, the effects of the primordial heavenly scripture were limited. In the southern blazing heaven territory, Chen Kunhua answered. Chen Qianhua raised his head and thought for a moment before he suddenly smiled. The position of the southern exalt is still empty, right? What do you think about me becoming the southern exalt? Hearing this, Chen Kunhua was taken aback. The death of the southern exalt Zhuang Shen had created an empty position for the exalts of 10 territories. In the current world beyond worlds, there was actually more than just a single 9th-level martial saint who had hopes of breaking through into the human exalt stage. While no one could say that they were completely confident, they were all filled with confidence. Still, everyone was at a loss. Now that there was a shortage of exalts, an empty position would be left empty. If someone made a breakthrough now, the position of the southern exalt would definitely be filled by the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. Yen Di was currently leading Broad Creed Mountain in boldly advancing into the southern blazing heaven territory. The position of the southern exalt was currently like the mouth of a volcano. If he didn't have the ability to suppress the Yen father and son, yet still took that position, ruling over 2 people who were not exalts but were superior to exalts, how different would this southern exalt be from a puppet? Also, if he refused to accept it, it would really be too damaging to his family's face. In truth, in the hearts of many, this position was equivalent to being specially left empty for the Yen father and son pair, the 2 exalts who were in name but not in name. Let alone the newly ascended experts. Most of the other 9 exalts of 10 territories would not be willing to become the southern exalt. Chen Kunhua had heard of a saying before that someone hoped that the southwestern exalt by Tao could become the southern exalt. That way, they would be able to slowly work together. If one had to name an exalt who could simultaneously suppress the Yen father and son pair, it would naturally be the upper exalt Chen Qianhua, who could contend against true immortals as a human and take on the combined forces of all the other martial saints of the world beyond worlds. Still, Chen Kunhua did not know whether to laugh or to cry. The exalts of 10 territories were of a higher status than the 8 territories. His elder brother was the most deserving upper exalt, the number 1 martial saint. If the Upper Exalt became the Southern Exalt, wouldn't that be equivalent to a demotion? Still, this elder brother of his really didn't seem to care about this in order to make it easier for him to have fun. Chen Qianhua would definitely take the initiative to demote himself to the south. Chapter 11:23. It is rare for there to be such an interesting Yan Zhaoga. I am in no hurry to deal with him. The best part should be left for the end. Chen Qianhua stretched lazily. Still, since Red Lotus Fu has gone to hide at Yendi's place, we might as well just serve the main course. That Yendi has the grand simplicity splendor cloud, and is also someone I cannot see through. I hope that he is as interesting as Yan Zhaoga. He praised from the bottom of his heart. This feeling of being out of my expectations is really good. Chun Kuanhua felt very helpless towards his elder brother, who acted entirely on his mood. Still, Chun Kuanhua suddenly thought of many things. The disturbances that Chen Qianhua had caused in recent days were much greater than what he had done in the past. As Chen Kuanhua saw it, more importantly, he had made too many enemies. The white-clothed brocade emperor and the encompassing emperor had already been offended. While the female emperor was usually unconcerned about matters, she was on good terms with Broad Creed Mountains, Yan Zhaoga, and Yendi due to her previous master. If Chen Qianhua went looking for trouble with them, it was hard to say if the female emperor would interfere. Of course, offending the white-clothed brocade emperor was actually equivalent to befriending the black-clothed brocade emperor. While the female emperor was on good terms with the Yan family, the Heaven Emperor had a deep grudge with Yan Zhaoga. Still, there were not just the 5 emperors in the world beyond worlds. Above the 5 emperors were the 3 sovereigns. Chen Qianhua had broken through the brocade emperor's headquarters and disrupted the overall situation of the world beyond worlds, destroying the stability of this place. From this perspective, who was the most dissatisfied with this? The earthly sovereign. That was why Chen Kuanhua was anxious, because of the Yan family's father and son. The sword sovereign might already be angered. If the brocade emperor's matter was thrown into turmoil, even the earthly sovereign might be offended, including the concealed sovereign who was on the same side as the earthly sovereign in most matters. If all 3 sovereigns were offended at once, no one would be able to maintain a stable foothold in the world beyond worlds. Still, there were 2 sides to everything. Chen Kuanhua suddenly thought that because of the dim radiant wheel and Shui Chuqing, the Yan family's father and son were probably not that popular in the earthly sovereign's eyes. While Chen Kuanhua did not know about the existence of the immeasurable heavenly lord and the immortal court, he was still able to deduce some things from what had happened in the world beyond worlds. While it was true that his elder brother had caused trouble, asking to be demoted from the Upper Exalt to the Southern Exalt would seem as though he was admitting to his mistakes in the eyes of others. Him going to the Southern Blazing Heaven territory to suppress the development of the Yen father and son as well as Broad Creed Mountain was probably exactly what Southern High Peaks Qilin Cliff wanted. Currently, the Upper Exalt Chen Qianhua was unquestionably the best candidate aside from Immortal Realm experts who could suppress Yan Zhaoga and his father. In this way, there would be a lot of room for maneuvering. If it was done properly, the Emperor of Earth might even support Chen Qianhua, the vanguard official. Of course, for the earthly sovereign, Chen Qianhua might also be a headache. It would be a pity to abandon him out of pity, but he could easily cause trouble. While he was suppressing the Yen father and son, wasn't he also using the Yen father and son to restrain him? From the perspective of the upper echelon's control and checks and balances, this might be the best choice right now. With Chen Qianhua taking the lead, the earthly sovereign would not directly fall out with the sword sovereign, as the world beyond worlds would be able to maintain a relatively stable situation. With the support of the earthly sovereign, Chen Qianhua's pressure on the sword sovereign was greatly reduced. Big brother. Countless thoughts flashed through Chen Kuanhua's mind as he looked at his elder brother in shock. Was it a coincidence? Acting willfully and recklessly according to his mood might very well create the most advantageous situation. Of course, the precondition was that Chen Qianhua definitely wanted to make things difficult for Yan Zhaoga and his father. In fact, there was no such motive. Is there really no other motive? Chen Kuanhua muttered inwardly. His elder brother's train of thought was like a heavenly steed soaring into the sky. No one dared to say that they could really grasp it clearly. Relatively speaking, Chen Kuanhua was probably the one who understood Chen Qianhua the most. Now, however, he was really a little uncertain. What's wrong? Chen Qianhua looked at his younger brother through the corner of his eye. As usual, Chen Kuanhua sighed. Was his elder brother just doing it for his own pleasure, or had he predicted the various possibilities in the future? After all, Chen Kuanhua's idea was more ideal and the most advantageous situation. However, with Chen Qianhua's personality of doing whatever he wanted, how many changes could he cause? Could such an ideal and advantageous result be achieved? Chen Kuanhua was a little unconfident. If you have such thoughts, big brother, don't be in a rush to head to the south. I will first visit the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, as well as the other exalts. Informing them of this, Chen Kuanhua inhaled deeply as he said, "Of course, it would definitely not be convenient for him to go to Ingenious Flying Peak now. He did not want to be surrounded and attacked by others." Chen Qianhua waved his hand casually. "Up to you. Still, I have no time to wait for you. I have to go to the southern blazing heaven territory first." "Big brother." Chen Kuanhua smiled bitterly, fearing precisely such a situation. He was still about to persuade him further when guests arrived outside. One was an old man, one was a youth. Chen Kuanhua recognized both of them. The old man was one of the 10 exalts alongside his elder brother, the Earth exalt Wang Zhengcheng, who was much older than him. At the same time, he was publicly acknowledged as the number 2 martial saint of the world beyond worlds aside from Chen Qianhua. The other was a cold-looking, black-clothed youth. This was not a human exalt, as he was a martial practitioner of the 9th level of the martial saint realm. Still, he might be the most unique 9th level martial saint of the world beyond worlds, right now. Some busybodies had recommended him as the number 3 figure beneath the immortal realm in the world beyond worlds despite having yet to become an human exalt. Northern High Peak's Jade Capital Crag's lineage, the Sword Sovereign's final disciple, the shocking god sword Nie Jingshan. The 2 of them had come together over the matter of Chen Qianhua's attack on Ingenious Flying Peak's Red Lotus Cliff earlier. The concealed sovereign was in secluded cultivation and had no disciples. The Sword Sovereign and the Earthly Sovereign were currently not in the world beyond worlds. Still, as their respective descendants, Nie Jingshan and Wang Zhengcheng naturally had to ask about this matter. Still, before they could speak, Chen Qianhua looked at his younger brother. "All right, there is no need for you to make a trip here. Just tell them directly here. I will be leaving first." Nie Jingshan was expressionless, while Wang Zhengcheng raised his brows slightly. The matter of Ingenious Flying Peak has yet to be clarified. "Upper Chen, please wait. What do you want your younger brother to tell us? Is it related to Ingenious Flying Peak?" "Elder Wang, fellow Taoist, yeah, it's like this." Chen Kuanhua considered his words as he said, "My brother entered the 9 underworlds by mistake and clashed with the Brocade Emperor there before returning to the world beyond worlds. In a moment of rashness, he attacked Ingenious Flying Peak. After calming down afterwards, my brother also felt regret. Therefore, he is willing to become the Southern Exalt on his own accord as an apology to the world." Wang Zhengcheng was slightly taken aback as many thoughts instantly flashed through his mind. Fellow Taoist, Chen wishes to become the Southern Exalt. The position of the Southern Exalt is empty anyway. Chen Qianhua said nonchalantly, even if I am not free, I am willing to exchange the title of Upper Exalt for it. Wang Zhengcheng pondered. In that case, Nie Jingshan suddenly said, fellow Taoist Chen, you should keep the title of Upper Exalt for yourself. Oh, Chen Qianhua, Wang Zhengcheng, and Chen Kuanhua simultaneously gazed over. If he really regrets his earlier actions, there are many ways to make up for it. Nie Jingshan said, as for the position of Southern Exalt, it is not empty. It has long since been claimed. Chen Qianhua smiled. Could it be that you want to say, it is you? That's right, it is me, Nie Jingshan said mildly. Before his words had landed, light flickered on his body as infinite sword chi shot into the skies. Amidst his words, Nie Jingshan stepped into the human exalt stage. Chapter 11:24. This day was destined to be a turbulent one. On the same day that Chen Qianhua broke through the Red Lotus Cliff, another great battle broke out on Kunlun Mountain. Similar to the previous incident where the Red Lotus Cliff was breached, the news of this battle was also not widely spread under the control of someone with ulterior motives. However, a small number of people in the know felt that it was absurd. The two exalted martial saints engaged in a great battle for the vacant position of the Southern Exalt. One of them was actually the Upper Exalt Chen Qianhua. That's right, he was going to give up his original position as the Upper Exalt to contest for the position of the Southern Exalt. This was something that made people not know whether to laugh or cry, but it really happened. What was even more dramatic was that Chen Qianhua did not succeed. The previously vacant position of the Southern Exalt had suddenly gained a new competitor. As soon as he learned of Chen Qianhua's wish, the god-petrifying sword, Nie Jingshan stepped into the supremacy realm on the spot. It was rumored that the entire process was completed in one go, and it was as natural as breathing without the slightest obstruction. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment. Normally speaking, a newly advanced supremacy would fill in any gaps. Nie Jingshan's breakthrough would naturally fill the vacant position of the Southern Exalt. However, Chen Qianhua's desire to descend from the top to the south was extremely strong. In the end, the two of them had engaged in a great battle for the position of the Southern Exalt. This might be the greatest battle between martial saints that the world beyond worlds had seen in the past 1,000 years. Both sides fought their way into the infinite space outside of the world beyond worlds, the intensity of the battle even comparable to that between true immortals and emperors. During the battle, the Sunluo Emperor, who had previously helped the Red Lotus Cliff clean up, arrived. Upon hearing the news, the Heaven Emperor arrived. Because this matter involved Jade, Capital Crag, and Broad Creed Mountain, even the female emperor, who usually stayed aloof from worldly affairs, had arrived, coupled with the Earth Exalt Wang Zhengcheng, who had arrived at the Qianhua Peak earlier. Under their witness, the battle ended in a draw, with both sides heavily injured. Chen Qianhua had unexpectedly failed to take down his opponent. Regardless of the thoughts of the Earth Exalt Wang Zhengcheng, even with the support of the Heaven Emperor, he could only maintain his silence in the face of the dissatisfaction of the female empress and the encompassing emperor. Therefore, Chen Qianhua was unable to take control of the south, leaving the position of the Upper Exalt unchanged as his intention of demoting himself fell through. Meanwhile, the new Southern Exalt, who had been left vacant for a long time, had finally been appointed. Nie Jingshan's sword shocked the world. Having just become a human immortal, he had battled to a draw with the previous strongest martial saint of the world beyond worlds, Chen Qianhua. One had to know that not long ago, Chen Qianhua had withstood the pressure of the Sunluo Emperor to break through the Red Lotus Cliff, proving to the world that he could fight against an immortal realm cultivator with just his body alone. At this moment, Chen Qianhua was helpless against Nie Jingxin, who had just entered the Exalt Martial Saint realm. In terms of age and years of cultivation, Nie Jingxin was slightly younger. This made one's imagination run wild. After learning about how the new Southern Exalt had ascended to the throne, Yan Zhaoge could not help but rub his palms in admiration. Senior apprentice brother Nie truly turned the tides. There were actually still newly ascended 9th-level martial saints of the world beyond worlds who could sit stably on the position of the Southern Exalt. But because of his position, most of the time, no one would consider him. This person was naturally Nie Jingxin. Still, he was different from Chen Qianhua. Him becoming the Southern Exalt did not affect Broad Creed Mountain's movements in the slightest. He would not be like the Southwestern Exalt by Tao in establishing his own local power. Nie Jingxin's ambition had always been elsewhere. Him occupying the position of the Southern Exalt this time was, to put it bluntly, specifically to bring thunder to Broad Creed Mountain. While others were surprised by Nie Jingxin stepping into the human Exalt realm, Yan Zhaoge was not. This was because he had known from the start that, unlike He Shixing and Li Juanxin, Nie Jingxin could take this step at any time. It was not that he could. It was just that he wanted to. When the Southern Exalt Zhuangshen had perished, Nie Jingxin had been able to fill in. It was just that he had not been interested in it. Secondly, he had come to Broad Creed Mountain's opening ceremony to boost its reputation, not because the Northern High Peaks Jade Capital Crag lineage wanted the position of an Exalt. Therefore, Nie Jingxin had chosen not to take that step. He had not advanced then, and he had not advanced in the following days as well. Nie Jingxin had essentially been suppressing himself at the 9th level of the Martial Saint realm. If nothing unexpected happened, he had been preparing to wait a few more days when the aftershocks of Broad Creed Mountain's opening ceremony had died down. Still, he would not reveal this news to too many people, as he did not intend to succeed the position of the Southern Exalt. Nie Jingxin had the same thoughts as some others. That position was left for the nameless Yan Zhaoge and Yan Di, waiting for the day when they truly became the Southern Exalt. It was only this time that he had acutely sensed that Chen Qianhua intended to harm Broad Creed Mountain's lineage in his ascension to the position of the Southern Exalt. Therefore, he had released his restrictions and ascended, blocking Chen Qianhua's footsteps outside the south. I also knew that the shocking God Sword was peerless in the past. Never would I have thought that it would actually be sharp to such an extent. The Northeastern Exalt Lu Jinggu sighed emotionally as well, feeling like the waves behind were always ahead of the old. Yan Zhaoge had brought Meng Wan back to the world beyond worlds this time, landing in the Northeastern Sky Heaven territory. While those who knew about the battle between Red Lotus Cliff and Qianhua Peak were limited, Lu Jinggu, who was an Exalt of 10 territories, had naturally received news of it. Yan Zhaoge had learnt many details from him. For example, while Chen Qianhua possessed the immortal artifact, the Heavenly Heart Ruler, he had never intended to use it. Also, Jade Capital Crag's side was not completely unprepared. After learning that Nie Jingxin and Chen Qianhua had begun fighting, Wang Pu had immediately dispatched the leakless immortal artifact that the Sword Sovereign had left behind to guard Jade Capital Crag. It was just that in the end, both sides had only clashed with their own strength, as neither had used their immortal artifacts. Yan Zhaoge said, emotionally as he listened to Lu Jinggu, I had never thought that senior apprentice brother Nie actually possessed the legendary earlier heaven nascent form. Earlier heaven was eternal, never falling to later heaven. It was one of the most peak physiques in history. Under certain circumstances, the word one of could even be omitted. It was no wonder that he had been able to cause the Sword Sovereign's sword to tremble when he had still been a young child. Also, he had possessed the opportunity at the beginning of primordial. Therefore, he had been immune to the origin heavenly scriptures deductions and probing to a certain extent. The former heavenly young master, the current upper exalt Chen Qianhua, had always been the number one expert of whichever cultivation level he had ascended to ever since he had started cultivating. There had never been an exception. A large part of this was due to the infinite profundities of the origin heavenly scripture, which virtually possessed foresight when clashing with others. If martial practitioners of the same cultivation level wanted to challenge Chen Qianhua, they would first have to consider the existence of the origin heavenly scripture. Yan Zhaoge himself possessed the peerless heavenly scripture, as he did not have to consider this problem at all. Still, for those who intended to contend with Chen Qianhua, this was a major issue that they had no choice but to consider. Fortunately, Nie Jingxin did not have to consider this problem. Due to this coincidence, peak comprehension ability, peak foundation, and outstanding will, he had been able to create a martial practitioner who was already able to contend with Chen Qianhua despite having only just entered the human exalt stage. Regardless of how Upper Chen does things, his talent cannot be belittled. Lu Xinggu shook his head and sighed in admiration. Kunlun's God-shocking dragon and Youth's 8 clans are truly worthy of their reputations. Now, with the appearance of you and your esteemed father and son, our world beyond worlds has truly seen an endless number of geniuses over the past 100 years. Yan Zhaoge lightly rubbed his temples. Elder Lu is polite. The battle for the position of the Southern Exalt ended with senior apprentice brother Nie ascending to the position. I wonder what the outcome of that matter at Red Lotus Cliff was. Chen Qianhua had trampled on Red Lotus Cliff. The matter would not be let off so easily. This outcome, Lu Xinggu's expression turned strange. Upper Chen's actions are truly unexpected. Chapter 11:25. Looking at Lu Xinggu's expression and thinking about Chen Qianhua's past style, Yan Zhaoge vaguely guessed something. Chen Qianhua having trampled on Red Lotus Cliff was no small matter. It was undoubtedly up to the Brocade Emperor himself to decide how to deal with this. It was just that the Brocade Emperor was currently not here. Right, both of them were not here. Still, as this matter involved the 5 emperors, the 3 sovereigns would definitely have to get involved. With the concealed sovereign currently in secluded cultivation and the earthly sovereign and sword sovereign not present, it would not be so easy for them to restrict Chen Qianhua. After all, he was actually equivalent to an emperor to a certain extent, as he could not be viewed as a human martial practitioner. Chen Qianhua's talent had always stunned the entire world beyond worlds. It was not an exaggeration to say that if he could push open the door to immortality, the position of the number 1 emperor of the world beyond worlds would probably no longer belong to the female emperor Jie Mingkong. Correspondingly, however, if he caused trouble, it would cause even greater disturbances. Therefore, the higher echelon experts of the world beyond worlds were rather conflicted about this super thorn. In consideration of controlling the situation, they had to either get rid of him before he was truly too big to be taken care of or find a reliable way to rein him. It was just that they had not been able to find a suitable rein before this. Actually, many people felt that Nie Jingxin was a candidate worth looking forward to. Kunlun's shocking god dragon and Youth's 8 clans. The 2 were equally renowned for their profundities. Still, some people felt that there might be a more suitable option now. Yan Zhaoge had also thought of what the earthly young master Chen Qianhua had thought of. For some peak experts of the world beyond worlds, the Yan father and son duo were similarly troublesome figures. Having them and Chen Qianhua restrict each other might be the best choice. Of course, even greater trouble might arise as both sides clashed head-on. This would have to depend on the control and adaptability of the higher echelon figures. no matter what Chen Qianhua thought. His intention to become the Southern Exalt and suppress Yanzhaoge and Broad Creed Mountain was equivalent to surrendering in the eyes of the earthly sovereign's lineage at Southern High Peaks Qilin Cliff. Or rather, it was an intention to cooperate. Chen Qianhua did as he pleased and was unpredictable. Now that there was a rare clue that could be grasped, it was actually a joyous matter for others. Of course, whatever the Earth Exalt Wang Zhengchang was thinking, the matter of Red Lotus Cliff had to be resolved first. Lu Zhenggu heaved a sigh and said, "I can't understand Chen Fan at all." Yanzhaoge did not speak, quietly waiting for him to continue. After the battle with Nie Jingshan, Upper Chen went to Red Lotus Cliff again. Lu Zhenggu said with a strange expression. He went there to apologize. Yanzhaoge put a hand on his head, opening his mouth, but no sound came out as he was rendered speechless for a while. "I always thought that I was thick-skinned enough, but now it seems that I still have a lot of integrity." He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Lu Zhenggu continued. His younger brother, the earthly young master Chen Kuanhua, went with him. He did not hide from anyone and openly paid a visit to the mountain. In front of His Majesty the Encompassing Emperor, His Majesty the Heaven Emperor, Her Majesty the Female Empress, and fellow Taoist Qilin Cliff King, he prepared lavish gifts and paid a visit to ask for forgiveness. He was even willing to be pierced by the blade. The so-called knife-piercing punishment was specially used to pay a visit to apologize for a crime. If one did not circulate their energy to resist, they would be like mortals. One knife pierced through 2 holes. If the vital parts were not avoided, life and death would be up to the heavens. Chen Qianhua had suffered the same number of injuries and deaths as the number of Red Lotus Cliff's disciples. In the end, he was severely injured and on the verge of death. He was carried down the mountain by his younger brother, Chen Kuanhua. He had fused the primordial later Heaven 6 scriptures into one and cultivated the foundation of the world. His defense and recovery abilities were shockingly strong. Still, he was virtually like a mortal when he was injured. His qi and blood were lost, as it would be extremely difficult for him to recover afterwards. This was actually not the main point. What was truly inconceivable to those in the know was that Chen Qianhua had actually submitted just like that. Martial practitioners were mostly domineering. Experts of Chen Qianhua's cultivation base would not easily lower their heads to others. Even if they were truly in the wrong, most people would still choose to stubbornly resist to the end. It could be said that they would not repent even in death. It could also be said that they firmly believed that they were right all along. Even if they did not have a reason, they could still find a reason. At most, it would just be a contest of whose fist was harder. As the saying went, killing was but nodding one's head to the ground. Even if one lost, one definitely could not lose in spirit. Whether or not this view was correct, it was indeed a view shared by most martial practitioners. Therefore, Chen Qianhua's actions appeared very different. This was especially because he did not fear the Brocade Emperor in terms of strength, let alone the fact that the Brocade Emperor was currently not in the world beyond worlds. Even if he was, he would just have to fight it out again, at most. Still, the final result left everyone speechless. As most people saw it, Chen Qianhua had truly started anticlimactic this time. The great battle with the encompassing emperor had proven his status as the nameless great emperor, causing his reputation to be unparalleled. However, being forced to a draw by Nie Jingshan, who had just entered the exalted martial saint realm, was equivalent to establishing Nie Jingshan's name. Now, he went from being arrogant to being respectful, and went to the Red Lotus Cliff to apologize for his mistake. He was even willing to be pierced by a knife. He had lost all face. It was like rushing up to give someone a slap in the face, and then immediately kneeling down and slapping yourself in the face. Lu Zhenggu shook his head in disbelief. Chen Kuanhua once said that Upper Chen had previously attacked Red Lotus Cliff because he had clashed with the Brocade Emperor in the 9 underworlds back then. That was why he had been so enraged that he took it out on those of the Brocade Emperor's lineage. Thinking back on it afterwards, he felt that he should not have done so. Therefore, he sincerely paid a visit to apologize. But as far as this old man knows, Upper Chen doesn't seem to be such a simple gentleman. He looked inquiringly at Yen Zhaoge. You entered the 9 underworlds together with the Brocade Emperor back then. Do you know what exactly happened between them? Because it was too unbelievable. Some people suspected that everyone had wronged Chen Qianhua. Was he actually an open and above-board person who was humble and introspective? It was Upper Chen who stirred up trouble in the 9 underworlds first. He did not go to Red Lotus Cliff to vent his anger. Yen Zhaoge answered straightforwardly. His face twitched as he felt rather pained. This must have been second young Master Chen's idea in private. It was just that eldest young Master Chen did not mind it. That was right. Chen Qianhua most likely did not think much of going there to apologize. Yen Zhaoge had already regained his wits. Having interacted with eldest young Master Chen many times, he had gradually come to understand him a little. If his opponent was him, Yen Zhaoge, Chen Qianhua would definitely not lower his head like this. Still, if it was Red Lotus Cliff or even the Brocade Emperor, it would be fine, because that was not something that eldest young Master Chen currently cared about. He would not feel humiliated either. For others, this was an important decision that concerned life and death, honor and disgrace. Yet, for Chen Qianhua, it might be as inconsequential as choosing whether to eat noodles or rice for dinner. He might not even care about being pierced by a knife. As compared to this, not being able to be successfully demoted to the Southern Exalt might truly make him feel regretful and frustrated. That was right. Unable to be successfully demoted, Chen Qianhua might really feel regretful and dissatisfied about this. While this sounded very preposterous, it seemed all too normal for this eldest young Master Chen. Elder Lu, do you know where the Chen brothers are now? Have they returned to Qianhua Peak? Not knowing whether to laugh or to cry, Yen Zhaoge turned his attention to another question, a ferocious light not being concealed in his eyes at all. He really did not feel any shame in beating them when they were down at all. Chapter 11:26. Although he knew that since things had come to this, Qilin Cliff would most likely secretly protect the Chen brothers. Just like ingenious Flying Peak's Red Lotus Cliff being pierced by blades, while there was no need to harm him, and his life and death were up to the heavens, the Earth Exalt Wang Zhangcheng, and even the Heaven Emperor would definitely not allow the disciples of ingenious Flying Peak to attack the body parts of Chen Qianhua that would definitely kill him. He could be heavily injured, but he had to stay alive. However, if there really was a chance to beat a drowning dog, Yen Zhaoge would naturally be happy to do so. After descending from ingenious Flying Peak, the whereabouts of the 2 brothers are unknown. This old man also does not know where they went. Looking at Yen Zhaoge, Lu Jinggu shook his head helplessly. They did not return to Qianhua Peak. Yen Zhaoge smacked his lips. As expected, even if Chen Qianhua didn't mind, Chen Kunhua would arrange a secret place for his elder brother to recuperate in seclusion so that he could safely get through this period of serious injury. If it were Yen Zhaoge, he would have done the same. Still, he would still have asked with the slightest bit of hope. Sadly, the other party did not give him that chance. Chen Qianhua cultivated with the primordial heavenly scripture as his foundation. While he could divine and spy on others, he could also make himself unfathomable. It was difficult for others to use divination to find him. Only someone who specialized in this path and whose cultivation realm was much higher than his would have a chance. Yen Zhaoge still felt a little regretful that he had not been able to beat a drowning dog, but he quickly put this aside. In that case, this matter has come to an end. I will go to the south to meet my father and communicate with him. Take care, Elder Lu. Lu Xinggu said, "The world beyond worlds has truly been troubled in recent years. You should take care of yourself, little friend Yen. I'm afraid that this might not be the end of it yet. According to you, a victor between the black and white brocade emperors will still have to be decided in the end." "Elder Lu," Yen Zhaoge asked softly, "of the two brocade emperors, I wonder which one do you support?" Lu Xinggu answered straightforwardly. Originally, they were the best before they went berserk, and the worst after they went berserk. After they split up, the current two can't be said to be good. As you said, one is too emotional, and the other is too utilitarian and cold. If this old man really had to choose, it would be the black-clothed one. At the very least, he has more potential. It is always a good thing that our world beyond worlds has another sovereign. Utilitarian coldness was not completely selfish and egoistic, under the premise that his selfishness would lead to the betrayal of his own kin and cause him to suffer even greater losses. It was not as though the black-clothed brocade emperor would not help others. However, this kind of help always had a clear goal. In other words, it was a favor in return or a transaction. Of course, because he did not consider the emotions of others, the black-clothed brocade emperor's judgment might deviate from his own expectations. Although utilitarian and ruthless, it doesn't mean that we can't interact with them. If we know their style of doing things in advance, we can keep a respectful distance from them, or we can just take what we need. Lu Xinggu said frankly, "But from the bottom of my heart, I don't appreciate such a person." Yen Zhaoge forced a smile. If the black-clothed brocade emperor wants to ascend, he would have to kill his two daughters. "Oh," Lu Xinggu raised his brows slightly. Fellow Taoist Wang of Qilin Cliff did not mention this. Still, thinking about it, if the brocade emperor were to walk the unfeeling path, he would indeed have to take this step. This northeastern exalt's white brows twitched. This old man does not support such fratricide. It is just that this matter involves someone else achieving the Tao. As an outsider, it is not good for this old man to say anything. Obstructing one's path was equivalent to killing one's parents. This was one of the greatest enmities in this world. Yen Zhaoge lightly rubbed his temples, sighing to himself. Amongst the higher echelon experts of the world beyond worlds who had no conflict of interest with the brocade emperor, Lu Xinggu's view was very representative, as it was the view of most of them. The black-clothed and white-clothed experts did not support either of them as they quietly watched the situation unfold, letting them resolve it themselves. Apart from that, if there was a clear inclination, there might instead be more who supported the black-clothed brocade emperor. After taking his leave of the northeastern exalt, Yen Zhaoge brought Meng Wan along in leaving the northeastern Sky Heaven territory, heading towards the south via the central June Heaven territory. Along the way, Meng Wan's emotions were still normal. Does this mean that it would be very easy for the upper exalt to find me? It is not just Upper Chen. It would similarly be very easy for your father to find you. While he is not proficient in the Tao of divination, the gap between your cultivation bases is just too great. Yen Zhaoge shook his head. If you want to go to the southeast to find Tang Yonghao and the newly established Sacred Sun clan, I'm afraid that won't be possible. He swiveled his head to look at Meng Wan. I suggest that you accompany me to the south. My father's grand simplicity splendor cloud will protect you there. Fu Ting is already there. 1 is protection, 2 is protection. Still, it might be a little awkward for you to see Miss Fu this way. That day would have to come eventually, Meng Wan sighed. Yen Zhaoge said, also, your movements will be restricted from now on as you will not be able to walk around as you please. I wonder if you mind? Meng Wan was not concerned about this. My life is more important. How could I mind? It is just that I have caused you trouble. That is fine. Yan Zhaoge shook his head. It was just that this way, Yan Di would not be able to be so high profile in his movements. Otherwise, others would be able to easily find Fu Ting and Meng Wan by following his tracks. Still, Yan Zhaoge had already decided to protect the two of them. From another perspective, it was not like he would not have gained anything at all. When he had returned to the southern blazing heaven territory and met Yan Di's first words had been, "You will not have to worry about finding martial arts of the grand, clear, direct lineage in the near future." While Fu Ting is a woman, she is also open and above board. I believe that she would not just take advantage of others. Yan Zhaoge was not surprised. With Yan Di protecting Fu Ting with the grand simplicity splendor cloud, Fu Ting would naturally be able to comprehend the concepts within. While it would be extremely difficult for her to comprehend the profundities of the Tai fist like Yan Zhaoge had, as the most orthodox martial practitioner of the grand clear direct lineage, who possessed the grand cosmos four manifestations aside from Tai, her talent and comprehension abilities were similarly shocking. Fu Ting would naturally have gained something. Yan Zhaoge and Yan Di's protection aside, just comprehending the principles of Tai alone was enough for Fu Ting to be unmoved. Without the Brocade Emperor's consent, Fu Ting had still decisively taken the initiative to exchange martial arts with Broad Creed Mountain. Of the grand clear cosmos five manifestations, ingenious Flying Peak's lineage only lacked the Tai fist. Now that there was a chance to obtain it, she would naturally strive for it no matter what price she had to pay. Even the sane Brocade Emperor would have come to the same conclusion before he had suffered cultivation deviation. I have already received a favor from your sect this time. Now, I also ask for the Tai fist. I hope that fellow Taoist Yen and his son will not take offense. Seeing Yan Zhaoge, Fu Ting said apologetically, "The Tai fist is just too important to my ingenious Flying Peak." Yan Zhaoge waved his hands. "My sect has also gained something. It is just an exchange of martial arts. There is no need to take it to heart, Miss Fu." He paused for a moment before continuing. "Your father, right? I am referring to the white-clothed one. I too hope that this Brocade Emperor will be able to emerge victorious." Chapter 1127. Fu Ting is endlessly grateful for fellow Taoist Yan's thoughts and assistance. Fu Ting said, frowning slightly, "It is just that others in the world beyond worlds might not think the same." She had clearly considered the fact that the other peak experts of the world beyond worlds might not support the white-clothed Brocade Emperor. From a development perspective, the benefits of befriending the black-clothed Brocade Emperor were clearly greater. After all, he was a potential sovereign. Meanwhile, even the white-clothed Brocade Emperor himself probably had no idea where he would be heading in the future. Although a great emperor's favor was precious, it paled in comparison to a martial emperor's favor. Most people will choose to watch from the sidelines. Yan Zhaoge shrugged. Those who will come looking for trouble will probably be those who already have conflicts with them. Of course, Chen Qianhua does not count. He looked at Meng Wan beside him. "Oh, you two chat. I will go out and have a chat with my father." Fu Ting and Meng Wan looked at each other, their gazes complicated to the extreme. Still, Yan Zhaoge was not worried that one of them would make things difficult for the other, as they were both calm and rational people. Perhaps silence was the most likely scenario. Such a day would eventually come. Under such circumstances, it would not be good for Yan Zhaoge to ask about it. With only the two of them facing each other without a third person present, it might instead be more beneficial for these two sisters of different mothers to interact. The grand simplicity splendor cloud bloomed like a lotus flower as Yan Zhaoge leapt out from within, landing before Yan Di. "From how the Brocade Emperor attacked me in the 9 underworlds, my earlier guess was correct," Yan Zhaoge said as he looked at Yan Di. "He has switched to the unfeeling Tao." Looking at Yan Di, Yan Zhaoga said, having switched to the unfeeling Tao, wanting to advance further, he would need to refine your grand simplicity splendor cloud. Yan Zhaoga had intended to harm Yan Zhaoga in the 9 underworlds because he wanted to cut off Yan Di's wings and clear the obstacles to his plan. He will come looking for trouble whether I protect his daughter or not. Yan Di's expression did not change, as he just nodded calmly upon hearing this. Yan Zhaoga said, now that the black-clothed and white-clothed brocade emperors are restraining each other, they will be able to buy us some time. The best outcome would naturally be for the white-clothed brocade emperor to emerge victorious. Still, with their whereabouts unknown, there is not much we can do about it. We can only wait and see. Instead, we need to be wary of others besides the black-clothed brocade emperor who might try to harm Fu Ting and Meng Wan. Yan Zhaoga told Yan Di about his encounters in the 9 underworlds this time, as well as his subsequent travels in the roving Jade Heavens. I'll have to find time to make a trip to the roving Jade Heavens after I finish what I have to do. Yan Di's expression was rather forlorn. He looked at Yan Zhaoga and said, we can ask about junior apprentice niece Feng after the concealed sovereign emerges from seclusion or senior apprentice brother Yu returns. They might be able to provide us with more information regarding the exalted Rahu luminary that year, which would help us in our search for junior apprentice niece Feng. Yan Zhaoga nodded silently. Actually, there was a ready candidate in the world beyond worlds right now. The Earth Exalt Wang Zhengcheng was someone who had personally interacted with the exalted Rahu luminary in the past. However, this old man was obviously not on good terms with them. Coming over to inquire about information was tantamount to asking a tiger for its skin. After returning to the world beyond worlds, the encompassing emperor must have already communicated with Wang Zhengcheng about the situation. There was no need for Yan Zhaoga to inform him about it, comparatively speaking. Rather than hoping for Wang Zhengcheng's help, Yan Zhaoga might as well patiently wait for the concealed sovereign to emerge from seclusion or the sword sovereign to return from extra-dimensional space. Of course, he could only do his best with this common sense. Feng Yunsheng would have to depend more on herself. Others would not be able to help her even if they wanted to. Yan Zhaoga was well aware of this. Still, he was unwilling to think too much about it, as he could only try to find a way for himself. Right, what do you think about the Grand Longevity Banner? Yan Di suddenly asked. Yan Zhaoga pondered for a moment before saying, according to Qin Qianhua, he obtained this treasure from someone else. He did not personally seize it from my mother's lineage. While this person is very preposterous, I am inclined to believe his words. It is just a pity that Qin Qianhua is currently in hiding. There is no way of knowing from whom he obtained the Grand Longevity Banner from. Still, Yan Zhaoga's gaze flickered. There are only a few people who are most likely to have done it. Yan Di said slowly, the Eastern Exalt, the Western Exalt, the Northwestern Exalt, and the Earth Exalt, the Eastern Vast Heaven Territory, the Western Turtle Heaven Territory, the Northwestern Dim Heaven Territory, and the Central June Heaven Territory. These were the 4 regions where the descendants of the Bright Connection Emperor, who Yuexin's lineage, were wanted. Let's keep an eye on them. I wonder where Mother is now. Yan Zhaoga lightly rubbed his temples. Still, no matter what, the Grand Longevity Banner has been retrieved at the end of the day. Mother will definitely be very happy when she learns of this. Yan Di let out a rare sigh, feeling a little short of heroism. Father and son exchanged glances, both feeling rather helpless. They could shamelessly boast that the men of their Yan family were all heroes. Still, the wives of the Yan family were all troublesome as well. Following the conclusion of the battle between Ye Jingshan and Qin Qianhua, with Qin Qianhua personally going to Red Lotus Cliff to apologize. The storm that had previously rocked the world beyond worlds finally calmed down. Yan Zhaoge remained in the south for a period of time. After taking his leave of Yan Di and the others, he immediately returned to the central June Heaven territory. Still, he still had something important to do along the way, which was to pay a visit to the newly appointed Southern Exalt, Nie Jingshan. Senior apprentice brother Nie, many thanks for your assistance this time. Yan Zhaoge said emotionally. Nie Jingshan did not establish a lineage, nor did he make a big show of it. He entered the south alone, casually finding a place to stay in the region of Thousand Lakes, where the northernmost border of the southern blazing Heaven territory intersected with the central June Heaven territory. Such a straightforward action caused all those in the know to have the urge to roll their eyes. Those who knew would know that Nie Jingshan was the Southern Exalt. Those who did not know might even think that he was guarding the northern gate of the southern blazing Heaven territory. While the cultivation environment of the southern blazing Heaven territory was naturally far inferior to that of Kunlun Mountain, there were still peak blessed lands that were not inferior to those of the central June Heaven territory. Phoenix Ritual Mountain, where Wudong Slope had been located, had been a famed sacred ground that was abundant in spiritual qi. However, Nie Jingshan didn't choose a place like this. He didn't have any followers or disciples. In the Great Lake of Thousand Lakes, he built a hut and lived on a small island in the middle of a lake. He cultivated alone in this straw hut. He had never asked about the matters of the southern blazing Heaven territory. He was clearly leaving all the space for Yan Zhaoge and Broad Creed Mountain. This became a major phenomenon of the world beyond worlds, as it was unprecedented. This might be the most simple Tao arena of the Southern Exalt in the history of the world beyond worlds. It was simple to the point of being exaggerated. Nie Jingshan might also be the Southern Exalt with the weakest strength and influence in history. Still, he might also be the Southern Exalt with the greatest cultivation base in history. Senior apprentice brother, Nie, everyone in my Broad Creed Mountain knows of your hospitality. You really need not remain in the region of Thousand Lakes. Yan Zhaoge advised. The spiritual qi environment here is much worse than that of Kunlun Mountain. It is not beneficial for your cultivation. Nie Jingshan no longer had the cold, stern look that he had had when facing Chen Qianhua and the others, as he instead smiled. It is fine. While Kunlun Mountain's environment is good, it is too peaceful. There is a need for me to temper my sword there from time to time. Chapter 11:28. While Yan Zhaoge was grateful towards Nie Jingshan, he also urged him to choose another blessed land with a better environment to reside in. It's fine. My ambition is not here in the first place. Nie Jingshan consoled Yan Zhaoge. Seeing this, Yan Zhaoge stopped trying to persuade him. Suddenly, he recalled something and reminded, right, senior apprentice brother Nie, although Chen Qianhua is currently recuperating in seclusion due to his injuries, you still have to be careful. He might come looking for trouble with you. Let him come, Nie Jingshan said indifferently. To be honest, if I were to fight him now, I have a 50-50 chance of winning. I don't have enough chance of winning. However, such an opponent is more beneficial for me to hone my sword principle. No, senior brother Nie, you misunderstand. Yan Zhaoge grinned. What I mean isn't that Chen Qianhua will come to take revenge on you. Instead, he'll find trouble with you and reap his absurd pleasure. Chen Qianhua possessed the Yuan heavenly scripture and was quite accomplished in it. This allowed him to see the past and future of most people in the world with a single glance. Of course, he could not passively receive information and be omniscient and omnipotent. Instead, he needed to determine the target before he could investigate and deduce. But as long as he was willing, those whose cultivation levels were lower than his, or those who were at the same level as him, had few secrets to speak of. Under such circumstances, the existence of a few exceptions naturally attracted Chen Qianhua's attention. Yan Zhaoge did not mention it. As for Yan Di, because he was protected by the grand simplicity splendor cloud, the origin heavenly scripture was unable to deduce anything. And now there was one more person, Nie Jingshan, who had the innate nascent form. Nie Jingshan had spoiled Chen Qianhua's plans to become the southern exalt, causing Chen Qianhua to feel dissatisfied. But to say that he was only thinking about taking revenge on Nie Jingshan was not necessarily true. On the contrary, it was because Nie Jingshan had the innate nascent embryo that Chen Qianhua couldn't see through, which made it easier for Chen Qianhua to be interested. If this was someone unrelated to him, Yan Zhaoge would of course be happy to shift the blame onto him. However, Nie Jingshan was one of his own, so he had to specially remind him. That is to say, he will start from other aspects and not seek revenge through a martial arts competition. Nie Jingshan understood. Yan Zhaoge nodded. Chen Qianhua likes to fight with others and enjoys boundless joy. Of course, this refers to those whom he is interested in. However, while he likes to fight, he doesn't like fighting. Although his personal strength is outstanding, fighting with others is just a way for him to have fun. He doesn't like fighting. Hearing Yan Zhaoge's words, Nie Jingshan had a thoughtful look on his face. No wonder I felt that he was different from other martial practitioners. The two chatted for a while longer before Yan Zhaoge brought up the matter of the Grand Longevity Banner. Nie Jingshan shook his head. I have no idea where Upper Chen obtained this treasure from. He suddenly thought of something and quickly said, Right, the Tai Bai sword is still here. The Tai Bai sword was the weapon that the exalted gold luminary Yan Xintang had forged in the past for the sake of the 9 luminaries. It was the indisputable #1 sacred artifact of the world beyond worlds in the Tao of the Sword, having been renowned alongside the extreme Yang Seal, the extreme Yin Crown, and the Grand Longevity Banner. Afterwards, Yan Xintang passed this sword down to his disciple, who was the current sword sovereign, Yu Xinbei. With Yu Xinbei's cultivation base, he had long since stopped using sacred artifacts. However, in remembrance of his master, he had always carried this sword with him, never leaving it. The Tai Bai sword will definitely be passed down to senior apprentice uncle Yan. Still, since senior apprentice uncle Yan doesn't use swords, this sword will eventually be passed down to you. Nie Jingshan said. Still, that will have to wait for master to return from extra-dimensional space. Yan Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. Since grandfather has passed it down to senior apprentice uncle Yu, it should still be passed down to the lineage of Jade Capital Crag. It should be most suitable for you, senior apprentice brother Nie. There's no need for me. Nie Jingshan shook his head. Ever since I started learning the sword from master, I have always forged my own swords. While the Tai Bai sword is good, I still prefer swords that I personally forged. Yan Zhaoge smiled. This is the same habit as another expert of the Tao of the sword that I know. Hearing his words, Nie Jingshan looked over. Roving Jade Heavens, the profound sovereign and the Dragon Spring Emperor, senior apprentice uncle Long Xueji's third son. Yan Zhaoge answered. You might be more familiar with his other name, the former little sword god, Qian Xueji. Nie Jingshan nodded. I hope that I will also have the chance to visit the Roving Jade Heavens one day. Yan Zhaoge raised his brows. This would really only be possible if there was a suitable opportunity. In the era when Yan Xintang and Long Xingquan had suppressed the Roving Jade Heavens with their swords, the relationship between the world beyond worlds and the Roving Jade Heavens had been pretty good. Therefore, the nature of the competition between the two sides had been more of a spar. Currently, the relationship between the two sides was extremely tense as they viewed each other with hostility. If Nie Jingshan imitated his grand master Yan Xintang's actions that year, it would be tantamount to a declaration of war. The slightest spark could ignite 2 huge barrels of gunpowder. It was only the Yen father and son duo who possessed special statuses who could avoid major trouble by visiting the roving Jade Heavens. After speaking with Nie Jingshan, Yen Zhaoge officially left the southern blazing heaven territory, arriving in the central June heaven territory. He did not immediately return to Kunlun Mountain, as he instead headed east, arriving at the connected Cloud Mountain Range in the eastern region of the central June heaven territory. Wind Thunder Manor was located there. Seeing Yen Zhaoge arrive, the Manor Lord of Wind Thunder Manor, Heng Xianda, personally came out to welcome him. After welcoming Yen Zhaoge into the manor, Heng Xianda immediately said, "Mr. Yen, as you wished, the news has already been spread. The central June heaven territory already knows of the name of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion. The other 8 territories have also received news of it." The Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion was the name that Yen Zhaoge had decided on. He had already informed Wind Thunder Manor about it earlier, allowing them to promote it through their own channels. The location had long since been decided on as well, with construction already nearing completion now. Of course, the location would not be the connected Cloud Mountain Range. It would really be too cramped if it was next to Wind Thunder Manor. "Thank you, Manor Lord Heng." Yen Zhaoge smiled. "There were too many things that I was busy with earlier, thus resulting in some delay. Still, the first batch of various treasures will be available very soon." He knew that Heng Xianda and the other Wind Thunder Manor martial practitioners would definitely be most concerned about that Vajra thunder. The reason they had been so enthusiastic and diligent was that they hoped to obtain a great amount of Vajra thunder from Yen Zhaoge, 4 Wind Thunder Manor who were proficient in artifact forging and did not lack external objects such as weapons, but were gradually reaching a bottleneck in their martial cultivation. This was what they had been eagerly anticipating. "Mr. Yen, feel free to do as you please. This old man will definitely do his best in the early stages." Heng Xianda was grinning from ear to ear as he said, "It is just that I wonder if Mr. Yen has any specific plans for when you will officially reveal your name." Yen Zhaoge calculated silently for a moment before answering, "At least half a year, at most a year." "Oh, Mr. Yen, this is a little," Heng Xianda said tactfully. "If too much time passes, people might not pay as much attention to it as they do now." Yen Zhaoge smiled. "It is fine. According to the situation that you have introduced, the attention of the world has yet to reach its peak. It can still continue to rise. Of course, old manor lords' worries are not without reason. This Yin has his own plans. Every once in a while, I will stir up some activity so that the attention does not dissipate." Heng Xianda nodded. "Mr. Yen has naturally long since thought of this. This old man will not say anything more then. I believe that something new will happen in the future." "Something new?" Yen Zhaoge smiled. It would indeed be something new. Also, it would be something that Heng Xianda and the others were currently unable to imagine. Chapter 1129. After leaving Wind Thunder Manor, Yen Zhaoge immediately headed for Kunlun Mountain. He first made a trip to the concealed sovereign's cave dwelling, the restful Immortal Valley. There was no surprise at all. The concealed sovereign was still in seclusion, in the roving Jade Heavens. Yen Zhaoge could only keep what he had obtained from Chu Lily for now. After leaving the restful Immortal Valley, Yen Zhaoge immediately headed for the northern High Peaks Jade Capital Crag. Upon arriving, he greeted Wang Pu and the others. Ever since Qiu Jiahai had received Yen Zhaoge's request, he had been preparing for the matters of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion, as he was currently not on the mountain. Xiao Ai also went with him. That was right. Xiao Ai was the person whom Yen Zhaoge had placed in charge of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion on the surface. While she would be infatuated and miserly from time to time, always acting like a little maidservant in front of Yan Zhaoge, having traveled extensively with Xue Chuqing in the past, she had gained much experience, as she possessed the ability to hold her own. Perhaps he was still a little immature, but he had the potential to be nurtured. In addition, Qiu Jiahai was watching from the side, so there shouldn't be any problems. As for whether she would give a discount to any customer that she saw as handsome after the official opening, Yan Zhaoge would just turn a blind eye to it. As long as I don't fall for his honey trap and get knocked down by a sugar-coated bullet, Yan Zhaoge thought rather unscrupulously. For Xiao Ai, who had always been a money grubber, taking care of such a treasure house was the best job of all. Even if she didn't own the goods, she was still overflowing with happiness. Still, this way, she would not be able to follow by Yan Zhaoge's side and serve him at all times, losing her role as a maidservant. As a result, Xiao Ai had been rather reluctant to accept this mission. She had yet to adapt to the change from a maid to a supervisor. Most of the things you said you needed to collect have already been prepared and sent to the Dragon Butterfly Valley. Wang Pu said, there are a few items that are in short supply. We'll send them over as soon as we can replenish them. Yan Zhaoge clapped lightly. It couldn't be any better. Thank you, Senior Apprentice Brother Wang. He also told Wang Pu and the others about what he had encountered on this trip, only picking the parts that were convenient for them to share. We should pay close attention to the Brocade Emperor's situation. Wang Pu's view on the struggle between the black and white Brocade Emperors had originally been similar to Lu Zhenggu's. After communicating with Yan Zhaoge, he too had changed his opinion to support the white-clothed Brocade Emperor. Still, the whereabouts of the black and white Brocade Emperors were currently unknown. Even if they had the strength to do so, they could only wait and see. If your judgment of the temperaments of the black and white Brocade Emperors is correct, there is one thing that you need to be wary of. Wang Pu pondered for a moment before suddenly saying, be careful of the black-clothed Brocade Emperor. He is trying to divert the attention of the white-clothed Brocade Emperor with the 4 Grands earlier heaven flag before suddenly launching a counterattack. Yan Zhaoge understood what he was thinking. He wanted to guard against the black-clothed Brocade Emperor suddenly killing his way back to the world beyond worlds after shaking off the white-clothed Brocade Emperor, launching a sneak attack on Fu Ting and the Meng sisters, as well as plotting against Yan Di and obtaining the Grand Simplicity Splendor Cloud. Senior Brother Wang is right. Yan Zhaoge nodded. I communicated with my father earlier. While the possibility of this is rather low, we indeed have to guard against it. Given the current situation, whether it was the black-clothed Brocade Emperor or the white-clothed Brocade Emperor, if they wanted to continue rising, they would first have to get rid of the other party. This was the foundation of everything. Only after that could they talk about other things. The immortal artifact, the 4 Grands earlier heaven flag, would naturally play a crucial role in the competition between the two. The black-clothed Brocade Emperor abandoning the 4 Grands earlier heaven flag and returning to the world beyond worlds to deal with other matters was undoubtedly taking a risk. Still, considering the pros and cons, it was not impossible. Without the 4 Grands earlier heaven flag, while the black-clothed Brocade Emperor would not be a match for the white-clothed Brocade Emperor, he might not necessarily have to face the latter alone. This competition was not a one-on-one battle, as the final victor would be the victor. If Master returns, the black-clothed Brocade Emperor will not take this risk. Wang Pu said, if he intends to harm Senior Apprentice Uncle Yen, Master will definitely not tolerate him. If he wishes to act against Senior Apprentice Uncle Yen, he must have sufficient confidence that he will be able to advance within a short period of time and become a new sovereign after succeeding. Only then will he have the confidence to resist Master coming to settle the score with him. Otherwise, he will definitely not act lightly. Still, Wang Pu was currently uncertain when the Sword Sovereign would be able to return to the world beyond worlds. If Master does not return, how likely is it that the black-clothed Brocade Emperor will take this risk? Perhaps he can contact others beforehand to help him resist Senior Apprentice Uncle Yu. Yen Zhaoge smiled. If it is just him who has returned to take this risk, his chances of success would be much lower now. Hearing his words, Wang Pu smiled as well. Nia Jingshen, stepping into the human exalt stage, was completely different from other 9th-level martial saints ascending to the human exalt stage. As a sword cultivator, he was skilled in offense and weak in defense. Against true immortals, he might not actually perform as well as Chen Qianhua. Even so, however, Nia Jingshen was still different from ordinary human immortals. With him having ascended to the human exalt stage, the pressure brought about by the black-clothed Brocade Emperor would be greatly reduced. Moreover, the Sword Sovereign had left an immortal artifact in the world beyond worlds. After discussing various other matters with Wang Pu, Yen Zhaoge took his leave and left Northern High Peak, heading for Dragon Butterfly Valley. There, with the help of Wang Pu and the other Jade Capital Crag martial practitioners, many preparations had already been made. Who was waiting there? Seeing Yen Zhaoge arrive, he instantly grinned. "Young master, you are finally back." "Troubled times indeed." Yen Zhaoge touched his lips, saying, "Whatever. Things have finally settled down somewhat now. We can start working on our earlier plans." Standing at the center of Dragon Butterfly Valley, feeling the spiritual chi fluctuations here, a smile appearing at the corners of his mouth. He stomped lightly, the entire valley instantly beginning to shake. Numerous runes lit up, extending into the distance as they transformed into a massive spirit formation that enveloped the valley. The next moment, the radiance of the runes gradually dimmed. While it could not be seen from the outside world, numerous marks were left behind on the ground within the valley. Within the valley, the earth veins shook as streams of spiritual chi spurted out from beneath the ground, resembling a surging spring. "Rise." Having already received Yen Zhaoge's instructions earlier, Ahu lifted up one massive cauldron after another, landing it on those springs that were spewing spiritual chi. A total of 9 cauldrons opened their lids in unison, their fires automatically igniting. The surging spiritual chi within the earth veins was directed within, resembling fuel. As the 9 cauldrons circulated simultaneously, complementing the formation, the spiritual chi of the surrounding heavens and earth gradually began circulating, surging towards the valley together. Slight changes shockingly occurred in the spiritual chi flow of Kunlun Mountain with Dragon Butterfly Valley at its center. Very good. Seeing this, Yen Zhaoge nodded satisfactorily. "Young master, where do we start?" Ahu asked naively. "Vajra Thunder? That Wind Thunder Manor is quite diligent in their work. Should we give them some benefits first, so that they will be more motivated and put in more effort?" Yen Zhaoge snapped his fingers. "Vajra Thunder comes second. Let us first refine something else. Something that I can use first. I have been waiting for this day for a long time." Chapter 11:30. Standing atop the 9 cauldrons in midair above Dragon Butterfly Valley, Yen Zhaoge waved his hand as streams of dense mist circulated. Dense purple chi instantly suffused the entire valley. Still, it was confined within the valley. A massive 3-legged furnace appeared amidst the dense purple chi. It was shockingly the profound sky purple gold furnace. This furnace was a pill furnace because it was too miraculous and of such a high level. Yen Zhaoge was currently unable to wield it. Still, he could make use of the miraculous properties of this furnace to complete some of his other plans. The 9 internal crystal furnaces down below took up positions in the shape of 9 palaces before jointly receiving the streams of purple gold light that surged from the profound sky purple gold furnace. one large and 9 small, 10 furnaces, one large above and 9 small below. Streams of light formed amidst space, vaguely forming an even larger, completely transparent, illusory furnace. Yen Zhaoge tapped lightly with his finger, the dense purple qi filling it. The originally transparent, illusory furnace turned purple at this moment. Accompanying the dense purple qi were the various materials that Yen Zhaoge had prepared for artifact forging this time. The illusory furnace turned pure purple before a purple-gold mist arose. Numerous graceful runes were inscribed amid space, extending into the surroundings as they gradually formed a formation that enveloped Dragon Butterfly Valley, resonating with the spirit patterns that had been inscribed on the ground earlier. Yen Zhaoge descended from midair, sitting in the meditative position atop the furnace that resembled a mountain. Who stood beneath the furnace, arranging the other materials as he turned to look at Yen Zhaoge atop the furnace. The light mist suffused Dragon Butterfly Valley, yet it did not dissipate as it instead drew the spiritual qi of the surrounding heavens and earth to gather here. Whether it was artifact forging or pill concoction, they were both work that required a great deal of effort. Patience, meticulousness, and time were required. Yen Zhaoge used all his methods, greatly saving time. Still, some of the most basic consumptions were still indispensable. One did not know the length of time within the mountain. Fully focused on a single task, time would always pass very quickly. Close to a month later, Yen Zhaoge suddenly opened his eyes as he sat atop the furnace, chanting slowly, "Open!" He rose upwards. As he did, the purple furnace began mightily disintegrating. All-encompassing purple qi swept and dispersed into the surroundings, transforming into thick clouds. The 10 furnaces of one large and 9 small appeared where they had been. Meanwhile, streams of purple-gold light circulated in midair, enveloping some things. That was the result of Yen Zhaoge opening the furnace this time. Having long since received Yen Zhaoge's instructions, knowing that the furnace would be opened today, Ahu rushed over excitedly. He saw that the thing enveloped by the purple-gold light were 7 long metal strips that were half-curved to form a certain arc. The surface of every metal strip that was like a crescent moon was inscribed with talisman markings. Every talisman pattern was a talisman formation that contained a unique and profound principle. The array glyphs were linked together in a mysterious manner. There seemed to be a connection between the 7 metal strips. "Young master, what is the use of this thing?" Ahu asked curiously after circling around the 7 long metal rods a few times. Yen Zhaoge extended his hand, lightly waving it towards the 7 long metallic strips. The 7 curved metal strips fell down at the same time and surrounded Ahu in the middle. Then they closed up like a flat and long cage. "Young master, this isn't some kind of punishment, is it?" Ahu couldn't help but shiver when he saw this. Yen Zhaoge teased. "That's right, you haven't been diligent in your cultivation recently. I need to teach you a lesson." Radiance simultaneously appeared on the metal strips, which then formed a mechanism. Ahu, who was in the middle of it, blinked his eyes. He did not sense any danger. Instead, the spiritual qi within the cage had become even denser and more refined. Kunlun Mountain was already the place with the densest and most abundant spiritual qi in the world beyond worlds in the first place. Due to this, martial practitioners with lower cultivation bases would be hard-pressed to adapt to it. While the spiritual qi in Dragon Butterfly Valley was not as dense as places like Northern High Peak, Southern High Peak, and Restful Immortal Valley, it could still be considered high quality. Still within the mechanism now, Ahu could clearly feel that the spiritual qi here was even purer. Even more miraculous was that even with his merging avatar martial saint cultivation base, he did not feel any discomfort at all. Who had never seen or even heard of such an environment in his life, let alone seen such a thing. Young master, surely this isn't some sort of excessive cultivation technique. Who did not go wild with joy, as he instead felt a chill run down his spine. Yen Zhaoge said exasperatedly, "Can't you think of something better?" He flicked a long, curved metal strip. This technique is known as the Seven Paths Pivotal Mechanism. It is an ancient technique of pre-Great Calamity times, originating from the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace. In the past, the Heavenly Court had been filled with experts. Still, there had still been some casualties. In order to make up for it, they had recruited and selected experts from outside the Heavenly Court to ascend to the 9 heavens. On the other hand, they had groomed themselves internally as well. Aside from abundant supreme martial arts and miraculous pills, the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace also had many wondrous techniques for grooming martial practitioners. It was just that most of these techniques had very harsh requirements. In the post-Great Calamity times, many techniques would already be very hard to find their way into this world. Still, there were still some methods that could be thought of. For example, this 7 paths pivotal mechanism had always been on Yen Zhaoge's mind. Its function was simple. It was to refine and purify spiritual qi, aiding in one's cultivation. Still, its effects were shocking. If the same person were to cultivate in the 7 paths pivot apparatus all year round, the effects would be several times stronger than cultivating outside of it. It did not involve comprehending principles, instead just purely accumulating experience and tempering one's body. It could truly be said to yield twice the results with half the effort. Virtually to the greatest extent, it reduced the amount of time spent on some absolutely necessary grinding in the process of cultivation. As the saying went, cultivating for a year is equivalent to others cultivating for several years. This was a situation like this. Young master, your and family head's cultivation speed is already faster than that of ordinary people. Like this, wouldn't it be even faster? Who was overjoyed. Yen Zhaoge stroked the half-bent metal rod. I lacked raw materials before. Now that I finally have some material, I naturally have to work on it. The only pity is that the materials are still too scarce, making it hard to mass-produce. He clasped his palm together, the ritual disintegrating into 7 half-bent metal rods that were kept together. Make the best use of time if you can. Yen Zhaoge handed those metal rods to, Who? I will be forging the second one now. Send this first one south and hand it over to my father. Who hurriedly received it. Yes, young master. I'll be back soon. After watching Who leave, Yen Zhaoge sat in the meditative position, closing his eyes and resting. Borrowing the power of the profound sky-purple gold furnace was rather taxing on his mind. He could not waste any of the materials he had on hand. If he failed in the forging, it would really be too much of a heartache. After a while, Yen Zhaoge opened his eyes, flying up into the air, once more as he opened the furnace to forge an artifact. Gazing over from afar, Dragon Butterfly Valley seemed calm as ever at Kunlun Mountain. Few knew that waves were currently surging from here. Chapter 1131. As Yen Zhaoge secluded himself in Dragon Butterfly Valley forging artifacts, time flew by. In the blink of an eye, nearly a year had passed. During this year, the world beyond worlds was much calmer than before. The most eye-catching thing was that the black and white brocade emperors had returned to the world beyond worlds one after another. It was worth mentioning that in the competition between the black-clothed and white-clothed brocade emperors, the white-clothed brocade emperor seemed to have gained the upper hand as he had successfully obtained the 4 Grand's earlier heaven flag. When Ahu had brought this news back to Yen Zhaoge had still been a little taken aback. According to his original predictions, the black-clothed brocade emperor should have been more likely to gain the upper hand in the battle between the black and white brocade emperors if no external forces had interfered. Did someone else interfere? Yen Zhaoge asked thoughtfully. The black-clothed brocade emperor first returned to the world beyond worlds. After a short stay, he left the world beyond worlds once more, heading towards extra-dimensional space. The white-clothed brocade emperor followed closely behind. After a short pause, he chased after the black-clothed brocade emperor. Still, when the white-clothed brocade emperor returned to the world beyond worlds, Fu Ting and Meng Wan met with him. Fu Ting successfully transferred the Tai fist she obtained from Yen Zhaoge to the white-clothed brocade emperor. At this point, ingenious Flying Peak's lineage had finally gathered all of the 5 grand cosmos supreme arts. The brocade emperor was probably the only one who knew the joy and sorrow he felt. White-clothed brocade emperor did not object to Fu Ting exchanging the grand commencement divine finger, the grand beginning bright emptiness form, and the grand plainness immeasurable body for the Tai fist. The selling price of a product was often not determined by its own value, but also by how much the buyer wanted to buy it. The stronger the demand, the higher the price. Therefore, in this exchange of 3 for 1, while Yen Zhaoge had gained, ingenious Flying Peak had definitely not lost out as well. Especially the white-clothed brocade emperor, who had obtained the Tai fist, his strength would increase. Adding on his immortal artifact, the 4 Grand's earlier heaven flag, he already possessed an overwhelming advantage in a duel against the black-clothed brocade emperor. However, if an external force were to intervene, the situation would not be clear. Now that the black and white brocade emperors were fleeing and pursuing, heading towards extra-dimensional space, once more, Yen Zhaoge and the others in the world beyond worlds could only watch silently. To Yen Zhaoge and Broad Creed Mountain, there was still something rather important that had happened. It was a good thing. Broad Creed Mountain's current chief, Yen Zhaoge's father, Yen Di, had successfully advanced further, attaining the 9th level of the Martial Saint realm, the late Immortal Bridge stage. Yen Di, who had already been progressing with his cultivation base skyrocketing in the first place, advancing forward with an indomitable will with the help of the 7 Paths pivotal instrument. He saved even more time as the increase in his cultivation base was even more shocking. While this news had not spread too widely, it still shocked the higher echelon experts of the world beyond worlds who were in the know. The cultivation base of that immortal bridge martial saint who had personally buried an exalt was currently approaching the human exalt stage, when he became a supreme being and achieved the body of a human immortal. What kind of scene would it be? It really made one's imagination run wild. As for Yen Zhaoge himself, other than spending time on artifact forging, he also did not neglect his daily cultivation. With the flipping heavenly scripture in his body at his current cultivation realm, every word, action, and every move he made was secretly circulating and accumulating. It was as if he was cultivating at all times. The only difference was the efficiency, refining some treasures and figuring out the principles within was beneficial to his cultivation. As time passed, the 1-year period that he had previously agreed upon with the Manor Lord of Wind, Thunder Manor, Hung Xiandao, and the others was fast approaching. During this period of time, besides providing Wind Thunder Manor with some Vajra thunder, the fruits of Yen Zhaoge's labor in Dragon Butterfly Valley had not been leaked to the outside world. The Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion had already been settled. It was just that it was completely empty inside. Through Wind Thunder Manor's publicity and the endorsement of those of the Sword Sovereign's lineage, the name of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion had already spread far and wide, drawing everyone's attention as it had become the most eye-catching matter in the world beyond worlds apart from the struggle between the black and white brocade emperors. It was just that with the publicity done, it had yet to officially open for business. Doubtful voices inevitably arose. Everyone's patience was being challenged unceasingly. The powers who were familiar with Wind Thunder Manor and even Northern High Peaks Jade, Capital Crag, all began unceasingly sending people to investigate. Old Brother Hung, tell me the truth. In Wind Thunder Manor, a brocade-robed old man sat on a guest seat as he asked Hung Xianda, "Is this Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion just a facade, or is it the real deal?" With Wind Thunder Manor helping the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion to spread the news, if the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion ended up empty-handed, Wind Thunder Manor would also be implicated and turned into a laughingstock. Relax, old Brother Zhong. Just wait patiently. There will naturally be definite news soon. Hung Xianda was neither hurried nor slow as he was composed. While the Vajra thunder he had obtained from Yen Zhaoga was limited in quantity, it had still given Wind Thunder Manor a great deal of reassurance. Perhaps Yen Zhaoga did not possess the method to refine Vajra thunder, merely having obtained a small amount of it by chance. Perhaps Yen Zhaoga had grasped the method to refine Vajra thunder. Still, in order to keep it a secret and prevent Wind Thunder Manor from deciphering it on their own, he had only provided a small amount of Vajra thunder. Whichever it was already sufficient to calm the anxiety of Hung Xianda and the others for now. Brother Zhong, we've been friends for generations. We're old friends. Hung Xianda said mysteriously, "Don't say that this old man did not warn you. If you want to do something, you should make preparations beforehand." According to what this old man knows, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion may be selling spirit divinity heavenly brew. Hearing his words, the brocade-robed old man, surnamed Zhong's gaze involuntarily focused as he sat up straight. Spirit divinity heavenly brew? The legendary fine wine that the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace used to entertain guests before the Great Calamity? That's right, it's the divine Ghost Heavenly Brew. Hung Xianda said, "There are many fine wines in the Heavenly Court. Although the Ghost God Heavenly Brew is one of the more inferior ones, it is still a rare treasure in the mortal realm." Old Man Zhong deeply agreed. To the sect that he led, it was even more precious. The Ghost Divinity Heavenly Brew could greatly increase one's strength after drinking it. It was effective even for leakless true immortals, and the effects were even more obvious for mortals. The martial art that Old Man Zhong cultivated was one that focused on vital qi. It was a path that focused on great strength and great vigor. To Old Man Zhong and his disciples, the Spirit Divinity Heavenly Brew was a great opportunity that far surpassed all the other treasures. Old Man Zhong pointed at Hung Xianda and said helplessly, "Old Brother Hung, you are really sparing no effort to help the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion." Hung Xianda chuckled and said, "You can choose not to believe this old man. However, if someone beats you to it, don't blame this old man for not warning you. It is said that the Spirit God Heavenly Brew is limited. In that case, I really need to go back and make some preparations." Old Man Zhong's expression turned solemn. "If the news is true and I manage to gain something in the end, I will definitely give you a gift of thanks." Hung Xianda smiled and nodded. "You are too polite, old Brother Zhong. This old man is also happy that you have gained something." This was not the first time something like this had happened. It was not just the Spirit Divinity Heavenly Brew. News of many other legendary treasures coming out of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion attracted everyone's attention. More and more people began to look forward to the day when the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion would officially open for business. Chapter 1132. The one-year deadline was finally about to arrive. During this period of time, more news about the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets spread. It was rumored that the Heaven-fleeing 7-rotation talisman would be sold here, a secret treasure unique to a major sect of pre-Great Calamity times, the Heaven-fleeing lineage. Compared to the small sects, the martial arts of the Heavenly Escape sect were naturally superior. However, compared to the behemoths of the same level, their offense and defense were mediocre. However, there was one thing that the Heavenly Fleeing Gate was extremely outstanding, its fame even spreading far and wide in the pre-Great Calamity world. His movement techniques and escape techniques were outstanding, and few people could compare to him. On top of this foundation, he created a treasure that could help people teleport and escape from danger. This was the Heaven Fleeing 7 Rotation Talisman. One talisman could be used 7 times. Furthermore, if necessary, these 7 chances could be used consecutively. The effects were extremely powerful. Although not everyone could successfully escape in every situation, it was enough to make most people envious. If used properly, it would be equivalent to gaining a few extra lives for no reason. How could anyone not care? The Spirit Divinity Heavenly Brew and the Heaven Fleeing 7 Rotation Talisman had already been discussed enthusiastically by those of the world beyond worlds. Still, news soon spread that the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion would be selling the impending rain plate. When this news came out, most people were stunned at first because this name was relatively unfamiliar. But soon, the eldest son of the Luo family of the Tiger Leaping Peak of the Central June Heaven Territories, Northern Tiger Leaping Peak, Luo Bei, the leader of the second generation, immediately rushed to the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion. Although Luo Bei had tried his best to keep a low profile, the news still leaked out due to some people's intentions. The others gradually understood. The Tiger Leaping Peak's Luo family was a renowned formation grandmaster. Not only was it renowned in the Central June Heaven Territory, it was renowned throughout the entire world beyond worlds as well. Aside from the 3 sovereigns, 5 emperors, and the exalts of 10 territories, it was generally publicly acknowledged that the Tiger Leaping Peak's Luo family was one of the best in the Dawa formations in the world beyond worlds. Luo Bei's father, the patriarch of the Luo family, Luo Baiyuan, had previously been renowned as the #1 expert in formations amongst the Immortal Bridge martial saints. Only after Yen Zhaoga had buried 3 9th-level martial saints in the southern Blazing Heaven territory with the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation that year had the halo enveloping Luo Baiyuan's head dimmed somewhat. However, no one would doubt the prowess of the Tiger Leaping Peak's Luo clan in the field of spell formations. Luo Bei was the second-generation leader that Luo Baiyuan favored the most. His cultivation and strength were extremely outstanding, while Daoist Shi, who had died at Broad Creek Mountain that year, had a lower cultivation base than Shunlingzi. His fame was not low at all. His proficiency in formations was top-notch amongst Immortal Bridge martial saints of the world beyond worlds. While they were both early Immortal Bridge martial saints, it was rumored that Luo Bei was even slightly superior to Daoist Shi. For such a person to rush over anxiously after hearing the news of the impending rain plate, of course it would attract attention. Very soon, under the intentional disclosure of certain people, everyone finally knew the effects of the impending rain plate. The so-called impending rain plate's name came from the meaning of preparing for a rainy day. Everyone knew that formations were powerful and could borrow the power of heaven and earth. However, every advantage had its drawbacks. There were many conditions and restrictions when setting up a formation. For many powerful formations to be truly effective, they needed the right time, the right place, and the right people. For example, the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation that Yen Zhaoga had set up that year required the support of a large-scale water vein. The large scale here had to be really big. It was so big that in the entire world beyond worlds, there were only those few rivers that fulfilled this requirement. Also, some powerful formations could still be set up when some conditions were lacking, just that their power would be reduced. It was naturally not an easy thing to set up a formation at any time and any place that was not limited to the geography and environment. This was especially so most of the time when its practicality was limited. It would naturally be best if a formation could be set up casually. However, if a longer amount of time was required, it would be hard to say if it could be used for anything other than ambushes. After all, in a true battle, the situation would always be ever-changing. Those who could set up a formation casually and whose power was not weak were all peak formation experts at the level of Daoisher and Luo Bei. While the Tiger Leaping Peaks Luo family was famed for their formations, there were only a limited few who could achieve this. It was because of this that the impending rain plate had appeared. This was an invention of pre-Great Calamity times, which had been lost to the world afterwards. As its name suggested, it was used to prepare for a rainy day. The use of this treasure was to allow one to prepare beforehand, storing it within a secret seal. When it was needed, a grand formation could be instantly set up. When facing an enemy, suddenly using such a move would undoubtedly decide the outcome of the battle. Of course, not all formations could be stored. At the same time, its greatest flaw was that it was a one-time use treasure. Still, there was no need to elaborate on its preciousness. It was to be expected that the Luo family would value it so much. On one hand, not every one of the Luo family's descendants could immediately set up a grand formation to face an enemy within a short period of time. This treasure was beneficial to them. On the other hand, if it was obtained by others or even enemies of the Luo family, it would definitely greatly reduce the Luo family's advantage in formations. Sailing against the current, one would either advance or fall behind. If they were to remain where they were while their opponents improved, it would be equivalent to them regressing. The Luo family was naturally anxious. Those who had received the news were completely stirred up as well. While there was no sign of the item yet, causing them to inevitably feel apprehensive, being able to pre-order it was definitely not a bad thing. The same principle applied to the spirit divinity Heavenly Brew and the heaven-fleeing 7-rotation talisman. Moreover, just before the 1-year deadline, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion had once again spread news that they would be selling internal crystal furnaces in large quantities. Thus, everyone became even more frenzied. While those without materials would ultimately be unable to forge artifacts without rice, those with sufficient materials would be able to greatly increase their artifact forging speed with internal crystal furnaces, allowing them to obtain the weapons they wanted much earlier than expected. It was still that same saying, for any sect that was ambitious, what would they do if they did not want it, but their opponents did? For a time, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion that had yet to truly open for business was as crowded as a marketplace, as its doors was virtually trampled through by the crowd. Still, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion announced to the outside world that it was temporarily not accepting pre-orders due to limited quantities. Whether it was the first half or the second half, everyone felt conflicted. Comparatively speaking, what made people feel slightly better was that the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion had said that when it officially opened for business, it would not be to the highest bidder, but to the first come, first served. At the same time, that temporarily not accepting pre-orders also left room for imagination. Young master, why is it not to the highest bidder? Xiao Ai asked curiously. As the official opening approached, Yen Zhaoga had already left Dragon Butterfly Valley and arrived at the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion in Yuanzhou City. This is just the foreplay. Yen Zhaoga crossed his legs, sitting leisurely on a chair. The item that the highest bidder will be competing for will be at the back. What they will be competing for will not be 1 or 2 specific treasures, but he smiled, raising a finger and wagging it, but a kind of qualification. Chapter 1133. Whether it was the spirit divinity Heavenly Brew, the heaven-fleeing 7-rotation talisman, the internal crystal furnace, or the impending rain plate, They were all rather powerful treasures. While Yen Zhaoge himself might not be able to use it, his fellow disciples of Broad Creed Mountain, as well as powers on friendly terms with Jade Capital Crag and Golden Court Mountain, would definitely be able to use it if their cultivation bases were still low, while Yen Zhaoge had also set aside a portion for his own use. Selling them like this would more or less erase some of his clan's advantages. Through these things, a great amount of other treasures could be exchanged for. On the whole, the advantages outweighed the disadvantages. More importantly, he was relying on this to form a kind of influence, one that he couldn't leave, couldn't let go, and was constantly captivated by it. It was an influence that he would approach on his own accord. As for the right to the highest bidder, that is another matter altogether. Yen Zhaoge shrugged. It is indispensable, but it cannot be excessive. Spending money would make one stronger. These words were a little unpleasant to the ears, but one had to admit that they were often the truth. Krypton magnates were often the main consumers. In terms of personal needs, Yen Zhaoge's true target customers were the magnates who spent large sums of money. It was amongst these higher echelon experts that many of the rarest resources could be grasped. In this current world, many treasures were priceless as they were scarce to the point of being virtually extinct. Some things could not be measured using normal prices, only being exchanged based on their owner's needs. Many treasures were very precious to Broad Creed Mountain, but of little value to Yen Zhaoge himself. Everything that he was interested in now was a rare and precious treasure. If one were to use forceful robbery to solve the problem, most of the time, people would keep the treasures secret, not knowing what others possessed at all. If not for the southeastern Yangheaven territory's listening Thunder Peaks Xia family accidentally leaking the news back then, they would not even know who to rob. In order to gather such resources efficiently within a short period of time, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion had to think of some methods. Most of the time, tangible treasures were not as attractive as intangible privileges. Moreover, intangible privileges could very well lead to more tangible treasures. Still, one had to be carefully grasped within. If it affected the balance too much, it would mostly lead to a swift demise. Still, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion still had a lot of room to die. With the support of the Heavenly Quartz Divine Palace's Martial Repository that year, it would be very difficult for a power to rival or even replace it to appear within a short period of time. Therefore, its vitality was very strong. If there was an external force trying to destroy the secret pavilion, the chances of that happening were very small. Qiu Jiahai and the other disciples of Jade Capital Crag were not here for decoration. Still, when we open our doors to do business, harmony brings wealth. Harmony brings wealth. Isn't that right? Yen Zhaoge chuckled. Before him, Qiu Jiahai had a strange expression on his face. It seemed like this junior apprentice brother, Yen, was one of the most restless people in the world beyond worlds in recent years. Young master, it's time, Xiao, AI said after looking at the time. Yen Zhaoge smiled. I'll leave it to you. I await your good news. Don't worry, young master. Xiao AI walked towards the front hall. Qiu Jiahai said, I'll also go to the front to keep an eye on things. Yen Zhaoge nodded. I'll be troubling senior apprentice brother Qiu. The day of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion's official opening had finally arrived. Martial practitioners of the world beyond worlds all hurried over. Naturally, there were also many people who were observing the situation. However, with Qiu Jiahai and the others overseeing things, it was unlikely that someone would jump out and cause trouble. Most of the treasures sold by the Pavilion of Divination were not suitable for the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. They had disciples too. Still, most of them were still observing the opening of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion this time. In the end, everyone's horizons were greatly broadened. Besides treasures like the internal crystal furnace and the spirit divinity heavenly brew, that everyone was already familiar with, there were also many other precious treasures of various kinds. Still, their quantity was limited. We can only buy 3 items at most. Everyone looked quizzically at Xiao AI. Xiao AI nodded solemnly. That's right. Only 3, and 3 for each family, not for everyone. Thinking that it was indeed impossible for everyone to buy such precious items, everyone could still accept it. Yen Zhaoge had set a very good price for these items. Still, however good the price was, it was naturally impossible for these rare treasures to be sold cheaply. While they had all come prepared due to the advanced publicity, all of them possessing considerable wealth, they still had to plan ahead. Luo Hai of the Tiger Leaping Peaks Luo family said, "Since that is so, give this old man 3 of each of the impending rain plates and the heaven-fleeing 7 rotation talismans. Then I want 1 internal crystal furnace and 2 bottles of spirit divinity heavenly brew." Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Xiao AI. Senior Luo misunderstands. What this junior means is that you can only buy 3 items from our pavilion in total. Huh. It was not just Luo Hai. Everyone else stared wide-eyed at Xiao AI. Xiao AI smiled politely. You can choose 3 impending rain plates, 1 each of the impending rain plate, the heaven-fleeing 7 rotation talisman, and the internal crystal furnace, or 2 bottles of spirit divinity heavenly brew, and 1 impending rain plate. You can decide how to distribute these 3 items. Still, whatever you choose, you can only buy 3 items from our pavilion in total today. The same goes for everyone else. Luo Hai appeared displeased. This old man has been in Yuanzhou City for many days, being the first to arrive. You once said that first come, first served. Does that not count? Of course it does. Xiao AI smiled, revealing her snowy white teeth. The treasures that our pavilion is selling today are indeed limited in quantity. Only those who arrive first will be able to satisfy the supply of 3 items for each family. Towards the end, there will be a shortage. We can only ask everyone else to bear with us. Please come earlier next time. Those who have not gained anything need not worry. Our pavilion sells treasures on the first day of every month. Henceforth, it will be custom-made. Everyone was rendered wide-eyed and tongue-tied before exchanging looks. No matter how rich one was or how powerful one's background was, they could only purchase 3 items at most. It was not impossible for them to get preferential treatment. The chance would come next time. Now, it would be up to the highest bidder. Everyone was very dissatisfied, yet helpless. This was because the items of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion were indeed good enough. Moreover, they were truly rare treasures. Also, Yen Zhaoge had set a very reasonable price this time, not having to worry about sales at all. Instead, he had maximized his influence. Since that is so, give this old man 3 impending rain plates this time. Luo Hai stared at Xiao AI for a long time, looking at Qiu Jiahai, who was sipping tea by the side. He could only helplessly give up. After pondering for a moment, that old man surnamed Zhong, who had gone to Wind Thunder Manor to inquire about news from Heng Xianda, also said, "Give this old man 3 bottles of spirit divinity heavenly brew." Everyone began to plan, and then put forward their own requests. Yen Zhaoge had previously specially asked Xiao AI to distribute the number plates. This was the first time they were opening for business. Those who queued up first would be able to trade for 3 treasures. Towards the end, some would only be able to trade for 1 or 2. In the end, more than half of them would have to return empty-handed. For a time, wails and cries filled the air. As compared to auctions where the highest bidder won, the losers were convinced of their defeat, as they could only curse the rich in private at most. Now, however, most of them were filled with unwillingness as they regretted having hesitated for just a moment back then, thus falling behind others. Chapter 1134. After a year of accumulation, Yen Zhaoge actually had quite a bit of stock on hand. Still, he did not intend to release them immediately. After the first auction had been completed, Xiao AI announced the closure of the pavilion. Those who wanted to stay for tea were all received. Still, the treasures could no longer be sold. Most people felt rather unresigned. Since they were unresigned, they had to think of ways to make up for it. Everyone reserved their number plates for the second opening a month later. Those who had gained something today were no exception. After all, they could only buy 3 things at a time. Reservations are currently not accepted. Xiao AI smiled. Reservations are made 10 days before the pavilion opens. Please come back early next time. Hearing her words, everyone felt rather dissatisfied. Xiao AI did not panic as she said slowly, "Please forgive us if we are lacking in our hospitality." They all left angrily. The feeling of having money in their hands, but nowhere to spend it, was naturally very bad. Yuanzhou City was a renowned major city of the Central Junheaven territory. It was extremely prosperous as most major powers had businesses stationed there. Yan Zhaoge would naturally not sit by and watch as his money that could have flowed into his pockets went to spend on the goods of others. Having received his instructions, Xiao AI had long since arranged for people to secretly spread the news after the guests had left. For the sake of fairness, openly cutting the queue and taking care of others would naturally be prohibited. Still, the Lord of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion was fond of befriending those of the same Tao. As the Pavilion Lord's personal friends, they would naturally have some secret privileges. The Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion had a special token plate for identification. You should know what that meant. Most of the people who heard the news immediately understood what was going on. It was just that in order to prevent people from maliciously obtaining the token plate, there were naturally many checks and restrictions on one's qualifications. For example, one had to attend at least a few public auctions on the first of each month. Everyone's imagination ran wild for a time as they looked forward to the second opening of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion on the first of the next month. At the same time, they all began secretly inquiring about how they could obtain a token plate. After closing the pavilion, Xiao AI reported the situation of the transactions to Yan Zhaoge in the back hall. "Young master, it is just as you expected. Other than a few people from the Tiger Leaping Peaks Luo clan, most people use 2 of the 3 quotas to purchase other items, while the last is reserved for purchasing internal crystal furnaces. Impending rain plate, heaven-fleeing 7 rotation talisman, and other treasures were good, but most of them could only be used once or had a limited number of uses. The internal crystal furnace, on the other hand, was different. For many small to medium-sized forces, or even some medium-sized forces other than Wind Thunder Manor, this was a treasure that could be passed down as the foundation of their sect. Unsurprisingly, the internal crystal furnace was the most sought-after item. Yan Zhaoge shrugged. It is to be expected. It is not that the Tiger Leaping Peaks Luo family does not want the internal crystal furnace. It is just that they want to control the outflow of the impending rain plates as much as possible. Therefore, they have used up all 3 quotas for the impending rain plates today. Young master, the people from the Tiger Leaping Peaks Luo clan are indeed brilliant." Xiao AI smiled as she handed over a jade slip. "I'll give you a complete set of array formations from my sect in exchange for a token." Xiao Jiahai asked, "What formation?" "I think it's called the Celestial Parting Harmony Light Formation," Xiao AI replied. "Oh, while it is only ranked lower amongst the Tiger Leaping Peaks 12 formations, being able to be ranked amongst them, it can already be considered a top-tier formation." Xiao Jiahai evaluated. "Junior apprentice brother, Yen, while you have the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation, the requirements for setting up the formation are really too strict. This Celestial Parting Harmony Light Formation is a pretty good compliment." Yan Zhaoge chuckled. "I've let senior apprentice brother Chiu down. I also have more formations than just the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation. We'll have to wait and see then, Chiu Jiahai smiled. Still, this celestial parting harmony light formation is also not bad. It can be used as a trading partner to exchange for other things. Yan Zhaoge received the jade slip from Xiao AI's hands. Since the Luo family is willing to hand it over, they must have been mentally prepared for it. I can give them a token plate. Still, it's the lowest grade kind. Yan Zhaoge smiled very unscrupulously. Chiu Jiahai sighed. Other businesses have many methods as well. Still, they are unable to achieve such smooth sailing as you, junior apprentice brother Yan. Many methods are just icing on the cake, Yan Zhaoge said nonchalantly. At the end of the day, it is our goods that are good. This is our confidence. With this confidence, we will be able to multiply our gains by playing these little tricks. Young master, we set the price with a conscience this time. While we earned a great deal, we did not earn our fill. Xiao AI said rather regretfully. Yan Zhaoge tapped her forehead. Lightly, look far ahead, little money grubber. There will come a time when your hands cramp from counting money. He waved the jade slip in his hand. Isn't this it? This is just the beginning. The token plates that were distributed at the start were all of the lowest grade. There was nothing to be afraid of when it was low. They could slowly rise up, couldn't they? How could they rise up? Everyone understood. The Tiger Leaping Peaks Luo family desired a token plate, even if it was of the lowest grade. A very important reason was that those who possessed a token plate would no longer be limited to just 3 at a time when purchasing the treasures of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion. Of course, it was still not an unlimited supply. Still, the upper limit was still higher than 3 no matter what. To the Tiger Leaping Peaks Luo family, a treasure like the impending rain plate was not just useful to them. It could also greatly increase the strength of their martial practitioners. From another perspective, if other powers possessed a large amount of impending rain plates, they would be able to offset the advantage of the Luo family in terms of formations to a great extent. The Luo family had many enemies as well. Xiao AI, I'll leave this place to you from now on. You should grasp your own limits. It is fine, even if you make a slight mistake. You just need to remember a general principle. Yan Zhaoge instructed Xiao AI, look far ahead. Influencing the hearts of people is currently the most important thing. If people constantly think about the monthly opening of our Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion, with them truly putting in their heart on this matter, the thoughts of others will gradually fade away. As this goes on, we will be able to take the lead. Yan Zhaoge laughed very shamelessly. Our things are good, but it is not to the point where everyone will definitely have to buy them. Still, if we work on the hearts of people, they will always think about our things. The things themselves will become secondary, as the matter of buying them is their true obsession. Once done, it will be equivalent to fulfilling a wish. Only then will they be able to sleep soundly. Otherwise, they will always be thinking about our opening next month. The public opening of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion was mostly at a fair price. Yan Zhaoge's true source of income actually lay in the secret token plates. That was the main source. Still, in order to nurture people's interest in the token plates, the greater the number of people who could be seen publicly, the better. Only in this way could the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion have influence. Only in this way could the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion become a symbol of status, causing more people to flock to it like ducks. Very quickly, a month passed. The much-anticipated second opening of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion finally arrived. This time, there was something that left the customers dissatisfied. One of the most popular products of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion, the Heaven-Fleeing 7 Rotation Talisman, had been halved from last time. Very quickly, however, their attention was drawn away by something else. This time, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion was selling a new treasure, a treasure that had not been available the first time it had opened. Chapter 1135. The last time the secret pavilion opened its doors, more than half of the people had returned empty-handed. Those who had gained something also felt dissatisfied and unhappy. Everyone was unwilling to accept this outcome. But actually, if one were to say that he was deeply worried, that might not be the case at that time. The reason for that was because it was still unknown whether or not the treasures of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion were truly that great. Although the on-site inspection confirmed that the treasure was real due to its overflowing spiritual energy, many people were not sure if it was as effective as the legends said. After all, it was a treasure that had been lost for a long time. He had never seen it before. Most of them were consumables. No one was rich enough to try out such a costly item. Over the past month, many people had been waiting for news. They wanted to see if the treasure produced by the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion was as powerful as the rumors said. Coincidentally, someone did experience it personally and spread the news. Of course, that was actually a shill that Yan Zhaoga had long since prepared. In short, there were some brave men who used the heaven-fleeing 7-rotation talisman and successfully escaped from the encirclement of a group of enemies by moving through the void. Furthermore, treasures like the internal crystal furnace and spirit divinity, heavenly brew, were also convenient to use. Therefore, the final result was clear at a glance. Anything produced by the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries was bound to be of high quality. Those who bought it were satisfied, while those who didn't were envious. That was why everyone was so dissatisfied when they heard that the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries wasn't increasing the number of treasures it was selling. Instead, it was decreasing the number of items it was selling. This was within Yan Zhaoga's predictions, but he was not worried. There were quite a few good things on hand, but Yan Zhaoga would definitely not release them all at once. As time passed, he would reveal something new from time to time. Only then would he be able to ensure that others would be interested in him in the long run. It might seem shocking to have everything prepared in one go, but it was actually unnecessary. As most of the items sold by the Secret Pavilion were lost to time, the Secret Pavilion had already released many good items in one go when it officially opened. The effect of attracting attention and attention had already been achieved. Any more would only result in overflowing, which would be a waste. Continuously weeding through the old to bring forth the new, continuously advancing to new heights. Not only would this continue to create attraction for the pavilion, but it would also continuously raise the expectations of others. This would allow the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries to gain a deeper impression in the hearts of the people. Therefore, when the pavilion opened for the second time, although they were initially dissatisfied that the number of heaven-traversing 7-rotation talismans had been reduced by half, the enthusiasm of the crowd was even greater. This was because the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries had released a brand new treasure, Paper Substitute. Its effect was to bear the brunt of the attack when the owner was attacked by an attack that would cause damage to the owner. Before using it, he had to prepare a substitute item. When he was attacked, even if he didn't notice it, the substitute item would automatically react and block the attack for him. The substitution paper dolls were not omnipotent. They could be neutralized by others. However, generally speaking, it would not be difficult for an enemy who could break through the substitution paper doll to kill the owner of the treasure. Therefore, this treasure was primarily meant for martial practitioners below the immortal bridge martial saint realm to be used against opponents of the same cultivation level. When facing opponents of the same level, it was indeed very effective. It was especially effective when used to deal with sneak attacks and ambushes. This was because the treasure would automatically take effect without the need for the owner to notice the enemy's sneak attack. In some critical moments, this might be a life-saving move, or the key to turning defeat into victory. In fact, if the enemy did not know about the existence of the substitute paper dolls, they might even fall into the trap. Compared to the heaven-traversing 7 turns talisman, it was not as flexible, but it was good for dealing with sneak attacks. After all, the heaven-traversing 7 rotation talisman was a treasure that required its owner's own will to use. It's on purpose, right? Everyone gradually realized. No wonder the heaven-traversing 7 turns talismans were sold less than half this time. It was to make room for these substitution paper dolls, right? While their effects were different, comparatively speaking, these 2 treasures were both protective treasures. How could that be? Xiao AI smiled, answering, "Our pavilion is indeed lacking in heaven-traversing 7 turns talismans this time. It is precisely because of this that we have specially released the substitution paper dolls for you to choose from." Someone questioned, "While these substitution paper dolls are good, they will be depleted as soon as they receive an attack. If they are depleted by a deceptive attack beforehand, wouldn't it be a complete waste? If that's the case, isn't it a little flashy but impractical?" That's not the case. Xiao AI imitated Yin Zhaoge, raising a finger and shaking it lightly. The substitution paper dolls will only automatically take effect if the owner is unaware of it and unable to react in time. If the enemy was still able to deceive the substitution paper dolls into attacking while being ambushed, that would be equivalent to alerting the owner of the treasure, making the sneak attack meaningless. Also, when facing an enemy, the owner of the treasure would be able to control whether or not the substitution paper dolls would be effective. If the owner of the treasure was deceived by the enemy, there would naturally be nothing to complain about. At the end of the day, people controlled treasures, not treasures controlled people. Oh, if that is so, this treasure is indeed extraordinary. Hearing Xiao AI's explanation, the person who had doubted her earlier nodded slightly. Still, before he could continue, a voice called out from the side, "I want 3 of these substitution paper dolls." Regaining his wits, that person could not help but curse inwardly as he hurriedly said, "I want 3 substitution paper dolls too. No, I want 2 substitution paper dolls and an internal crystal furnace." Everyone was jubilant once more. Thus, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion's business continued booming. It was just that with the limited supply, there were still some who were happy while others were worried. On the first day of another month, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion opened for the 3rd time. There are no more substitution paper dolls. Everyone looked quizzically at Xiao AI. Xiao AI said apologetically, "Our pavilion currently has no more substitution paper dolls. We are currently making preparations. Perhaps we will have some next time. I hope that everyone will be magnanimous enough to forgive us." Everyone felt a slight sense of loss within their hearts. The few who had bought substitution paper dolls previously felt incomparably fortunate. Meanwhile, most of those who had not bought them felt exceptionally upset. Even the various other treasures before them were no longer so alluring as they could not compare to the substitution paper dolls that they had just passed by. While they were currently within the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion, some people were already thinking about the next opening of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion. At that time, would there be substitution paper dolls again? Junior apprentice brother, Yen, is there really no more? Qiu Jiahai secretly asked Yen Zhaoge about this in private. Yen Zhaoge chuckled. "Of course there is." Qiu Jiahai pointed at him, unable to speak as he only managed to say after a long time, "What an unscrupulous merchant." Xiao AI, remember, do not supply anything similar to the substitution paper dolls, this time to those who have obtained a yellow token plate. Keep your mouth shut and speak the same. Just say that there are currently no more in stock. Yen Zhaoge completely accepted Qiu Jiahai's mockery before continuing to guide. Xiao AI, treasures are a privilege that only holders of token plates of higher grades can enjoy. These are all privileges and also have to be graded. This way, the higher the grade, the more valuable it is. You understand? Understood. Xiao AI answered without hesitation. Her two big eyes seemed to have two huge copper coins flashing in them. After the third opening of the pavilion, there were finally quite a few people who had more or less managed to purchase treasures from the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion. However, the fourth opening of the pavilion was instead more anticipated by everyone. Therefore, everyone waited and waited. The day that happened once a month finally arrived once more. On the first day of another month, everyone was in high spirits. Yet, in the end, they discovered that the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion had actually not opened this time. This bastard had skipped his ticket. Chapter 1136. The Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion had jumped ship. An uproar broke out at this. The old manor lord of Wind Thunder Manor, Heng Xianda, who had always been promoting the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion with his reputation, could no longer sit still this time as he hurried over to Yuanzhou City. Upon arriving at Yuanzhou City, Heng Xianda did not see Qiu Jiahai as his heart instantly sank. Besides Yan Zhaoge's own reputation and the attractiveness of Vajra Thunder, another important factor was that someone of the Sword Sovereign's lineage had vouched for him. Still, he still saw Qiu Jiahai's disciples remaining here. After receiving Heng Xianda, Xiao AI answered his doubts. Jade Capital Crags, Mr. Qiu has gone to look for my young master. Heng Xianda thought to himself, I really should go look for him. The start of the month has already arrived. Why is the Ghost Pavilion still not opening? Heng Xianda could not help but ask. When he had just entered, many people had already gathered outside due to its fame. Now, it was a huge commotion as many doubtful voices could be heard. With Heng Xianda's discernment ability, he could even tell that some of them were intentionally stirring up trouble and inciting others. Even without thinking, he knew that they were those powers whose business might have been squeezed out by the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion. The treasures sold by the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion were too rare and expensive, being the only one in the world beyond worlds. After their reputation was established, their competitiveness was just too great. These people whose business had been squeezed out could only endure it. Now, however, it seemed like they finally did not have to endure it. It was rare for the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion to make such a foolish move. They would definitely make use of this chance. Heng Xianda smiled bitterly. One cannot stand without trust. In the world of martial practitioners, trust was especially important. Relax, Senior Heng. Xiao AI was not concerned at all. Young Master said earlier that everything is within his control. She went out to see the agitated crowd. This magnanimous girl's expression did not change, even when facing them who seemed like they wanted to eat her alive. Our pavilion's opening date has been changed at the last moment. I first apologize to everyone here. Still, there are some hidden reasons behind this. Please remain calm. What hidden reasons? Don't try to find excuses. Someone immediately yelled, unhappily. Someone from the crowd tried to make a ruckus. Xiao AI didn't give them a chance to speak. She raised her voice and said, first of all the treasures for this month's opening have actually been prepared. The reason why the opening has been delayed is because there is a matter that has not been completely resolved. In view of the fact that last month there were many people who wanted to purchase substitute paper dolls but were unable to do so and could only return regretfully. Therefore, for the sake of everyone, our pavilion has specially prepared a batch of substitute paper dolls. It's just that these treasures are hard to come by, so it will take some time. Please forgive me. Xiao AI smiled and said, once the substitute paper figurine is ready, the pavilion will open. At that time, there will be no shortage of other treasures. Without waiting for the crowd to react, Xiao AI continued. Other than that, this month's opening will add another treasure that has never been sold before. The crowd became noisy again, but it wasn't the same as before. Everyone's thoughts heated up again. Last month, there were no substitute paper dolls. Many people were disappointed, so they were especially concerned about this month's opening. That was why the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets had refused this month. That was why everyone had gone crazy. However, whether or not there would be substitute paper dolls for this month's opening was still unknown. Everyone was just looking forward to it. Last month, the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets had only said that there might be substitute paper dolls for this month's opening. Today, however, after hearing Xiao AI's words, it was clear that there would definitely be substitute paper dolls. The dissatisfaction in most people's hearts gradually faded. Instead, they looked forward to the opening of the pavilion even more. It was just a delay, not a complete shutdown. It had to be said that the previous few successful pavilion openings that had left people dissatisfied, yet also broadened their horizons, had indeed given the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets a rather high reputation. At the very least, it was definitely not enough to court disaster in one go. Instead, everyone was looking forward to it even more. This was especially so after Xiao AI had mentioned that apart from the substitute paper dolls, the internal crystal furnace, the heaven-fleeing 7 rotation talisman, and the other treasures, the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets was actually going to add new treasures for sale this time. How could this not make one's heart itch and mind it incessantly? Although the vast majority of people could only buy 3 items at a time, these 3 items were freely chosen. Everyone was naturally curious about the new treasures. Those who wanted to cause trouble noticed that the crowd of Jade, Capital Crag disciples had already noticed them, so they had no choice but to give up. Otherwise, they would attract too much attention in the current environment. The new treasure that our pavilion is selling this time is known as the Formation Breaking Pestle. Xiao AI continued. Hearing this name, everyone was slightly taken aback. Then, someone subconsciously looked towards the representative of the Tiger Leaping Peaks Luo family. After 3 consecutive successful transactions, the representative of the Luo family was no longer Luo Hai. However, the Luo family had already obtained an elementary token issued by the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. This token was for the Luo family and not for a specific person. Therefore, the representative of the Luo family only needed to bring the token here. May I ask what effects this formation breaking pestle has? The representative of the Luo family regained his wits, his face instantly darkening as he asked with a final hope. Xiao AI said nonchalantly, "This treasure was created by the pre-Great Calamity Purple Command Villa. It is proficient in breaking and countering all formations. As a one-time consumable treasure, although not all formations can be broken, it will have a strong effect on most formations. With one strike, it will be able to shatter them." The face of the representative of the Luo family completely collapsed. He could even feel a malicious gaze looking at him from afar. That was the representative of a rival power of the Luo family. The relationship between the two sides was tense, with friction occurring all year round. When the descendants of the two families met, they would almost immediately fight to see who was stronger without saying a word. The only reason they were currently at peace was because they both wanted to buy the treasures of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. During this period of time, the only thing the Luo family had purchased from the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries aside from the internal crystal furnace was the impending rain plate. While they were just some external objects, their deterrence and suppressive power towards their enemies rose at a visible rate, giving them the upper hand. Now, however, this formation breaking pestle had suddenly appeared. It was practically the bane of the Luo family. The impending rain plate still required the preparation of formations beforehand, but the formation breaking pestle was a treasure that could be used directly. This treasure could be used by many people. After all, it was not just the Luo family that possessed grand formations. However, Its effect on the Luo family was undoubtedly the most direct. This treasure of your pavilion, the representative of the Luo family, suddenly stopped mid-sentence. Xiao AI was looking at him innocently. This senior, is there a problem? This treasure of your pavilion. The representative of the Luo family sucked in a deep breath and said, helplessly, my Luo family wants to reserve it. With the appearance of a treasure like the formation-breaking pestle, there was no need to worry about sales. Even if no one else bought it, the Tiger Leaping Peaks Luo family would go bankrupt to buy it all. Moreover, how could others not be interested? If it was used to deal with the Luo family, it could also be used to deal with their own enemies. When attacking the mountain, they could just attack the Mountain Gate's grand formation and directly destroy the other party's geographical advantage. Xiao AI replied with a smile, everyone can stay in Yuanzhou City for now. Although our pavilion will open a little later this month, it will definitely not disappoint everyone. Please look forward to it. Chapter 1137. The Tiger Leaping Peaks Luo family was helpless. The impending rain plate was of utmost importance to them in raising their strength. Meanwhile, the formation-breaking pestle just happened to counter the formations that they were proficient in. Adding the two together, the Luo family would probably suffer a greater loss. Compared to the impending rain plate, the formation-breaking pestle had become something that they had to pay more attention to. They had to control the number of formation-breaking pestles that others could obtain. They had to prevent their enemies from obtaining them. The danger of their enemies obtaining a large number of formation-breaking pestles was even more terrifying than obtaining a large number of impending rain plates. The representative of the Luo family cursed inwardly as he hurriedly sent people back to Tiger Leaping Peak to inform Luo Baiyuan, Luo Bei, and the others. The appearance of the formation-breaking pestle had a huge impact on the entire world beyond worlds, even surpassing the impending rain plate. Even those who were not enemies of the Luo family coveted it after seeing its value. While it was a one-time use treasure, the formation-breaking pestle was like the internal crystal furnace to a certain extent, possessing strategic value. Therefore, this treasure had unquestionably become the most popular treasure during the fourth opening of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion. It was just that the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion still controlled the quantity. The rarer and more expensive an item was, the more people sought after it. Unable to purchase the formation-breaking pestle, some people wanted to save up for the next opening of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion. Others wanted to make up for it by purchasing other treasures. The Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion came up with new tricks time and time again, causing people to feel dizzy as they became more and more engrossed. This was especially so when the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion would release new treasures every once in a while. People could not help but yearn for them as they wondered how many more trump cards the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion still had. What was most noteworthy was that 90% of the treasures sold by the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion were treasures that had never existed in the world beyond worlds before. The Great Calamity had caused many martial arts and rare treasures to be lost. Even if some treasures had been preserved, there were only finished products and no forging methods. With the passage of time, thousands of years had passed, and now it had fallen into the predicament of being lost. Yet, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion had allowed treasures that had been lost since the Great Calamity to reappear in the world one after another. The quantity was so great that it filled one's imagination. It was very likely that the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries had not obtained a batch of finished products by chance. Instead, they had grasped the refining methods of the formation-breaking pestle, impending rain plate, internal crystal furnace, and other treasures. Therefore, as long as there were sufficient materials, they could be mass-produced. This made everyone more and more shocked. After all, the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets, which was currently in the limelight, had only revealed the tip of the iceberg. Under the deep sea, what kind of colossus was there? Some of the peak experts didn't care much about treasures like the formation-breaking pestle and the impending rain plate. However, they also had treasures that they yearned for day and night. They had only seen records of them in literature or heard of their existence. However, they had not been able to find them for many years. The Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion's endless surprises and astonishing resources made their hearts burn with fervor. Later on, people began to come knocking on his door, trying to request the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries to specially order some kind of special treasure. Mister, he wants the 9 rotation protection talisman. Xiao AI blinked. Our pavilion has never sold this treasure before. What brings you here, sir? This was not the opening day of the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets, so Xiao AI was in the rear hall receiving guests. The person before her was none other than the Brocade Emperor's disciple and Fu Ting's senior apprentice brother, embracing Taiji Hishishing. While his cultivation base was much higher than Xiao AI's, Hishishing did not look haughty as he instead said very mildly, "Your pavilion's products have always been of excellent quality. You've also released new products time after time, seemingly having an endless supply. He naturally came here to try his luck." "You are polite, Mr. He. If you were talking about this 9 rotation protection talisman," Xiao AI smiled. "Our pavilion does indeed have it. However, we do not have it in stock. If Mr. wants to order it, you will probably have to spend more. Also, there are some materials that you will have to prepare yourself." Hishishing had originally only been trying his luck. Hearing this, his eyes instantly lit up. "Since it is an order, it is only natural that you will have to pay a higher price." While Hishishing would pay according to the price in other shops, he might not be able to increase the price. It was not that he was arrogant. Instead, his face as the number 1 descendant of ingenious Flying Peak was already worth this price. Having him owe them a favor or obtain his friendship was something that many could not wish for. Still, Hishishing himself acknowledged that the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion was definitely an exception. He knew the foundation of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion, and whose business it belonged to. Moreover, Qiu Jiahai and the other disciples of Jade Capital Crag were here as well. "What materials do you need? You can ask for them. As long as he can find them, I will definitely find them for you." The materials that Xiao AI had requested were not all for forging the 9 rotation origin protecting talisman. Some of them were for Yan Zhaoga's personal needs. The materials that Hishishing had requested also did not include all the materials required for the 9 rotation origin protecting talisman. That way, Yan Zhaoga would be able to gain more while also not divulging the secret formula for forging the 9 rotation origin protecting talisman. Hishishing was more or less aware of this. Still, since he had specifically requested the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion to order it for him, this was only to be expected. Therefore, adding on the price of the order itself, as well as the basic cost of purchasing the 9 rotation origin protecting talisman, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion had profited greatly from this deal. This was still under the premise that Yan Zhaoga was on good terms with ingenious Flying Peak, and was on good terms with Hishishing. If it were anyone else, their earnings would be even more abundant. Those who requested to order it would also be willing to do so. After all, this was currently the only thing that existed in the world beyond worlds. As mentioned earlier, the price of a high-grade artifact depended more on the buyer's desire for it. As the buyer desired it incomparably, they would naturally be willing to pay a high price. Moreover, wanting the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion to specially order a treasure for them was not an easy thing to do. It was about qualifications. This was not something that a low-grade token plate could enjoy. There were few in the entire world beyond worlds who could get the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion to order a treasure for them. In order to obtain such qualifications, one would need to spend a considerable amount of money and experience. As time passed, Xiao Ai's understanding of Yan Zhaoge's previous instructions grew deeper and deeper. The little maid, whose hands were cramping from counting money, was truly overflowing with happiness now. The opening of the pavilion on the first day of every month still controlled the quantity and types of treasures sold. In order to maintain the market's desire, many treasures were sold in different combinations, not selling the same type of treasure multiple times in a row. It was just like the substitution paper figurine from back then. Therefore, the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion's business continued to flourish. Meanwhile, the demand for token plates of various grades was even crazier. While the revenue from the opening of the pavilion each month was relatively constant, not increasing by much, still, the total revenue of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion was skyrocketing at a rate that left everyone in the know gaping and tongue-tied.